Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the South Carolina Public Service Commission. Today is Monday, October 28, 2024. It's approximately 1 p.m. We're here for case number 2024-192E, which is a request by Dominion Energy South Carolina Incorporated for approval to continue its portfolio of demand-side management programs to include approval of a new residential demand response program and reaffirmation of its demand-side management rate rider. First, a roll call of commissioners, and it appears that all commissioners are present in the hearing room. Now I would ask Ms. Wester-Hill if she would to please read the docket.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. The hearing before you today is in docket number 2024-192E. It concerns the filing made by Dominion Energy South Carolina Incorporated on June 28, 2024. As the chairman mentioned, Dominion is asking for the commission to review the results of its comprehensive demand-side management portfolio plan for program years 15 through 19, basing on the results from the 2023 demand-side management potential study. Additionally, Dominion is requesting approval by the commission to continue its suite of demand-side management programs as modified by the 2023 demand-side management potential study for an extended 5-year period of 5-year term. Also, approval of a new residential demand response program for a 5-year term. Reaffirmation of the rate rider mechanism that allows recovery of Dominion's costs and lost net margin revenue associated with its demand-side management programs, along with an appropriate incentive for investing in such programs. And Dominion is also asking the Commission to reaffirm its approvals as set forth in prior orders of the Commission for the terms of Dominion's demand-side management programs and their cost recovery rider. On August 5th, 2024, this hearing was scheduled and noticed by the clerk's office to be held beginning at 1 p.m. today. Mr. Chairman, the counsel for the parties of record are present and available upon your call for appearances. The docket is ready, and therefore there are no other matters.
Thank you very much. At this point, would the parties introduce themselves, beginning with Dominion?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. I'm Chad Burgess. I'm in-house corporate counsel for the company, and with me today is Michael Anselmo and Jason Richardson, both from the law firm of McGuire Woods. They serve as the company's outside counsel, and together we represent Dominion Energy South Carolina in this proceeding.
Welcome, gentlemen. South Carolina Coastal Conservation League and Southern Alliance for Clean Energy.
Good afternoon, Chair Powers. Kate Mixon on behalf of SACE and CCL, and with me today is my co-counsel, Thomas Gooding.
And welcome to you. South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Roger Hall and Jake Edwards on behalf of the department.
Thank you. Walmart, Inc.
Good afternoon. Stephanie Eaton here on behalf of Walmart, Inc. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Eaton. And the Office of Regulatory Staff.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and Commissioners. Chad Torrey on behalf of ORS.
Thank you very much. Before we begin, are there anything we need to take up prior to beginning the testimony?
Mr. Chair, the company would ask that its application, its petition, be introduced as hearing Exhibit 1. I've spoken with counsel for the parties, and we have no objection to that request.
And there's no objection to that? All right. The exhibit known as the application will be marked for identification and placed in the record as Exhibit number 1. All right. Anything else from any party? All right. Dominion, your case.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The company calls Ms. Cheryl K. Shelton and Mr. Joe Shambach.
All right. Please come forward and be sworn.
If you'd raise your right hands, please. Do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Ms. Shelton, if you can turn on your microphone, please. And Ms. Shelton, can you please state your full name for the record?
Cheryl K. Shelton.
And Ms. Shelton, by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
Dominion Energy, South Carolina. I'm the manager of energy efficiency and energy conservation demand side management.
And did you prepare or cause to be prepared under your direction 35 pages of direct testimony pre-filed on August 15th, 2024?
Yes, I did.
And if I asked you all the questions contained in your pre-filed direct testimony here today, would your answers still be the same?
Yes, they would.
Chair Powers, I move that the pre-filed direct testimony of Ms. Shelton be entered into the record as given orally from the stand.
The 35 pages of pre-filed direct testimony of Ms. Shelton will be entered in the record as if given orally from the stand.
And Mr. Schambach, can you please state your full name for the record?
Joseph C. Schambach.
And by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I'm employed by ICF Resources, LLC, as a senior manager of energy market analytics.
And did you prepare or cause to be prepared under your direction 13 pages of direct testimony pre-filed on August 15th, 2024?
Yes.
And if I asked you all the questions contained in your pre-filed direct testimony here today, would your answers be the same?
Yes, it would.
Chair Powers, I move that the pre-filed direct testimony of Mr. Schambach be entered into the record as given orally from the stand.
The pre-filed direct testimony of Mr. Schambach will be entered in the record as if given orally from the stand.
And Mr. Schambach, did you also did your pre-filed testimony include an exhibit labeled JCS-1?
Yes.
Chair Powers, I move the exhibit labeled JCS-1 be entered into the record as the next hearing exhibit.
The pre-filed exhibit of Mr. Schambach identified as JES-1 is marked for identification. We place the record as exhibit number 2.
One minor point of clarification is JCS-1. I apologize for not being clear there.
I apologize if I didn't understand you. To be corrected that way. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Shelton, have you prepared a summary of your pre-filed direct testimony?
Yes, I have.
Can you please present that summary to the commission?
Yes, I will. Good afternoon, Chair Powers and members of the Commission. My direct testimony provides an overview of the company's request to continue its suite of DSM programs, create a new residential demand response program, and reaffirm the company's DSM rate rider mechanism. The company's proposed DSM portfolio for program years 15 through 19 will continue to provide customers with a suite of cost-effective, energy-efficient, and energy conservation programs. These offerings represent a balanced suite of programs that are reasonably practical from an implementation and customer receptivity standpoint, reasonably achievable, technically and economically justified, and based on the approved 2023 DSM potential study, and are likely to provide energy savings to the customers and its system. In addition, the company's request includes one newly proposed residential demand response program, which includes 3 new offerings that leverage the company's deployment of AMI meters to assist in addressing the company's winter peak. The company respectfully requests the Commission approve all relief requested in its application, and this concludes the summary of my direct testimony.
Thank you. Mr. Schambach, did you also prepare a summary of your pre-filed direct testimony?
Yes, I did.
Can you please present that summary to the commission?
Yes. Good afternoon, Chair Powers and members of the Commission. My direct testimony discusses and describes the development process for DESC's proposed comprehensive demand-side management portfolio plan for program years 15 through 19. The proposed program aligns with the company's 2023 DSM potential study, which was filed with DESC's 2023 Integrated Resource Plan and approved by the Commission. The primary objectives of the DSM program plan were 1, develop projections of the expected rate of participation in DSM programs each year. 2, estimate annual peak demand and energy savings. 3, provide projections of the DSM budget and level of spending. And 4, provide a summary of key estimates of other metrics for the PY15 through PY19 DSM program years. As a result of these objectives, ICF and the company, with input from the Energy Efficiency Advisory Group, developed a cost-effective portfolio of programs for all customer classes that is designed to achieve approximately 326,896 megawatt hours of net electric energy savings for the entirety of the plan, and provide peak demand savings to be approximately 68.79 megawatts by the end of the program cycle. In ICF's professional opinion, the proposed suite of programs demonstrates savings that are reasonably achievable for the company in its service territory. This concludes the summary of my direct testimony.
Thank you. Ms. Shelton, did you also prepare or cause to be prepared under your direction 20 pages of corrected rebuttal testimony pre-filed on October 11th, 2024?
Yes, I did.
And if I asked you all the questions contained in your pre-filed corrected rebuttal testimony here today, would those answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
Chair Powers, I move that the pre-filed corrected rebuttal testimony of Ms. Shelton be entered into the record as given orally from the stand.
The pre-filed corrected rebuttal testimony of Ms. Shelton will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Mr. Schambach, did you also prepare or cause to be prepared under your direction 7 pages of rebuttal testimony pre-filed on October 7th, 2024?
Yes, I did.
And if I asked you all the questions contained in your pre-filed rebuttal testimony here today, would those answers be the same?
Yes.
Chair Powers, I move that the pre-filed rebuttal testimony of Mr. Schambach be entered into the record as given orally from the stand.
The rebuttal testimony of Ms. Schambach will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Ms. Shelton, have you prepared a summary of your pre-filed corrected rebuttal testimony?
Yes, I have.
Can you please present that summary to the commission?
Yes, sir. Thank you. The company agrees with and has incorporated ORS's request to recalculate the program's cost effectiveness using the company's calculations from its last avoided cost proceeding. The company, however, does not agree with the ORS's recommendation to reject the company's request for authorization to modify, expand, amend, or terminate programs without commission approval. Likewise, the company disagrees with CCL SACE witness Gravat's recommendations to deny the company's flexibility to terminate its EEDSM offerings and appreciates that he agrees with the company's ability to expand and modify the programs. The company has successfully operated with commission-authorized flexibility for over a decade, and changes to that flexibility will lessen the company's ability to respond to customers and suggested advisory group changes to quickly work to increase participation or add new measures, and will add unnecessary regulatory complexity and reporting that will add costs for customers, potentially delaying program enrollments, and slow down the company's ability to react and adapt to real-time changes in the EEDSM marketplace. The company also rejected many of Witness Gravat's remaining recommendations in its order approving the Commission's proposed integrated resource plan, and Witness Gravat's recommendations cannot be reconciled with Witness Cutter's assessment that the company's overall portfolio represents a reasonable mix of programs, or the reality that the company's proposal presents a suite of programs that are reasonably achievable for its service territory. This concludes the summary of my rebuttal testimony.
Thank you. And Mr. Schambach, did you also prepare a summary of your pre-filed rebuttal testimony?
I did.
Can you please present that summary to the commission?
My rebuttal testimony specifically responds to the impacts of changes to the benefit and cost test calculations in DESC's program year 15 through 19 program plan, resulting from the recommendations of ORS Witness Cutter. Witness Cutter requested the company recalculate its cost effectiveness calculations using certain information from the company's recent avoided cost docket. At the company's request, ICF incorporated those calculations, which resulted in an increase to the cost effectiveness results for the company's suite of programs, with the TRC calculation increasing from 1.24 to 1.41 and the UCT calculation from 1.78 to 2.02. My rebuttal provides the details of these calculations.
Thank you. Chair Powers, Ms. Shelton and Mr. Schambach are available for questions from the parties and the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. We'll go to the interveners. Ms. Mixon, Mr. Gooding, do you have any questions? if you can find your way through the maze.
The layout's changed.
I did make it eventually. Thank you, Chair Powers. Good afternoon, Mr. Shambach, Ms. Shelton. I have just a few questions, I think mostly for you, Ms. Shelton. Mr. Shambach, feel free to jump in if you think that's appropriate. Ms. Shelton first, Table 7 on page 19 of Mr. Gravat's testimony recreates a table that was also included in his IRP testimony, which shows ICF's calculation of cost effectiveness scores for programs at different savings levels, ranging from business as usual to 2%. Do you recall that?
I do recall that table, though I don't have a copy of his testimony with me, but I do recall that table.
Okay. Let's see, I don't have a lot of questions about this, but I can just put it on the screen for your reference in case that's helpful. ICF in the company's potential study found that those higher savings scenarios were not achievable. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. You would agree, wouldn't you, that utilities are capable of improving participation levels or savings levels by making changes to how they offer programs, wouldn't you?
There, certainly by adding additional measures. If there are additional measures that you can add to a program. But I would like to state that we had individual program planning sessions for every program. We brought those to the advisory group. We had 9 individual program planning sessions and invited feedback on each individual program that's in the program plan. And we didn't receive significant individual program ideas that would increase participation for any one program. What we did here was, please do more of this program, without solid, concrete ideas on how to increase those programs. Each individual session led to an action plan, which was included in the program plan, but you can't just look at the cost effectiveness and say that you could do more, because you have to include customer participation and how customers will respond to a program and whether they will participate or not.
Okay. So just to confirm, though, that sounds like a yes. You would agree that changes to programs can affect customer participation and ultimately savings levels.
If there are available changes to add to a program, yes, it could potentially increase the program.
Okay, thank you. You are aware that Duke Energy is currently achieving substantially higher savings levels than Dominion has projected as part of this 5-year portfolio, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Has Dominion reached out to Duke Energy to evaluate how they are able to achieve those higher levels of savings?
We've looked at Duke. We've looked at Santee Cooper. We've talked to several other utilities, and we have the same measure mix as other utilities. We have what the difference between our programs and their programs are our customers. And how we influence our customers and the decisions our customers make in our service territory is different. And that really is the biggest difference. The measures and the energy savings from those measures are typically the same.
So you think that Dominion's customers are just not as interested in saving money on their bills through energy efficiency programs as Duke's customers?
What I know from the ODC market study is 58% of our customers are concerned about energy efficiency and are actively interested. The rest of our customers, that would be about, the rest of those customers are not as actively engaged, sometimes are rarely engaged in energy efficiency, and it is a different, it is harder to convince them to participate. And when you consider that 80% of our customers are non-low income and 20% are low income, the 80%, those numbers even are higher, the people that do not want to participate. So it gets harder. That's overall all customers. So it is very hard to encourage customers to participate in our programs Though we try very hard and we market these programs very heavily. So I can't discuss every item of what Duke or any other utility does, though we do benchmark and we do discuss with other utilities. But the main thing that I do want to compare to other utilities, we are using the same measures. We are offering the same exact measures to our customers as other utilities do. These are standard programs that other utilities offer.
Okay. Going back to my earlier question, would incentive levels be a factor that could contribute to whether a customer wanted to participate in a program or not?
Certainly, incentive levels would, and in some cases, when we look at Duke's, our incentive levels for our incentive levels, the last time I compare, that would be subject to compare now, but the last time for HVAC, our incentive levels were actually higher than Duke's.
Okay. And marketing can affect program participation
yes,
as well, right?
It can, yes.
What about word of mouth around customers if programs are successful? That could affect participation.
That can be
levels as
positive
well,
and negative,
right?
absolutely.
Okay.
I would agree with you.
Does Dominion think it's relevant that numerous other utilities have achieved higher savings levels than it has?
Ms. Mixon, not to interrupt either one of you, court report has, with y'all are kind of overlapping, so just take a second before you answer, and also take a second before you question, and you know, we're Southern, it's hard enough just to follow, but if y'all could just kind of make a little space there. Thank you.
Sure. Michelle, and can I repeat the question?
Please,
Okay.
please.
Does Dominion think it's relevant that numerous other utilities have achieved much higher savings levels than it has been able to achieve?
There are other utilities that have achieved higher savings, but in the Southeast, we are right in the middle. If you look at the Southeast utilities, we are right in the middle of what those utilities have. We're right in the middle. We haven't achieved the most, and we haven't achieved the lowest. So yes, can you say that there are utilities right beside us that have achieved more? That may be true, but there are utilities right around us in the Southeast that have achieved less than us.
Okay. You're aware of the average savings level for ratepayer-funded utility programs, and this was in ACEEE's most recent state scorecard, which was in 2021, that was 0.68% savings as a percentage of sales, including opt-out customers.
I believe that you're reporting a national average, correct?
Correct.
Not just in the Southeast. In the Southeast, that was a much lower number, and we were right in the middle of that much lower number.
Okay. So just to confirm, you would agree the national average is 0.68% savings, correct?
I do recall it was somewhere close to that, yes.
Okay. Would you also agree that utilities in the Southeast are that more of them are represented in the lower achievement in the national scorecard compared with certain other regions?
I would agree with that. I'd also agree in that report alone, Dominion Energy South Carolina raised and was complimented on one of the slides as jumping 8 points. Okay. 8 places in that report, in the particular report you're talking about.
Thank you. Dominion's portfolio here is projected to achieve 0.34% savings, including opt-out, in program year 15. And then that declines to 0.28% in program year 19. Is that right?
Subject to check. That may be correct. The potential study, the medium case, was 0.54% of retail sales over the 5 years. I don't know the individual years.
Okay. How many times over the last decade has Dominion achieved its projected level of savings? PY4, it was probably been
3 program years where we've exceeded either 90% or above 3 program years where we've exceeded the forecast. And I will say, you're also including years that were COVID years. So in 2019, we had a potential study, and then we had COVID. So there was a program forecast that did not include what happened after COVID. And so we were not able to achieve our forecast. In addition to that, we also had a commission order where we were required to do a rapid assessment following some stakeholder comments in the IRP that we do a rapid assessment. So that forecast also was changed. So our forecast increased, though we did have experienced COVID and a pandemic. So yes, we have been unable to achieve the last forecast from our last potential study. That is true. And then we've had significant changes in the market, HVAC changes and ISA changes for lighting.
Did Dominion, as part of this proceeding, conduct any qualitative review of other utility programs to determine, how or if there were differences in how higher achieving utilities were implementing their programs?
Through the DSM potential study, there was a review, a benchmarking review, and that was discussed in the 2023 potential study when that was filed. There was a benchmarking of other utilities done during that time period, yes.
Okay. Would you dispute that? Do you recall that Dominion had a witness named Drew Durkee who participated in
Yes.
Preparing that potential study?
Yes.
Would you dispute that Mr. Durkee, during the IRP proceedings, stated that there was not a review of best practices that was conducted as part of that potential study?
Drew Durkee and the ICF team did benchmarking.
Okay. Is there a distinction between benchmarking and reviewing best practices?
I would say I guess there is, yes. I would distinguish the difference between the two. I'm sorry if I misinterpreted your question. Yes, I would say there is a difference.
Has Dominion reached out to any high-achieving utilities or program administrators, either in South Carolina or outside of that, about what they are doing to see if there are any steps that Dominion could replicate?
That's an ongoing thing that we do on a regular basis, yes. So we do, I can tell you that just last year, in the fall of last year, we sat down with Santee Cooper and shared what I would call benchmarking and best practices and shared their programs, had our program managers meet their program managers, discuss all of our program, just explained our programs in whole, what went well, what didn't go well, and shared experiences across the board. I've also had conversations with Duke and called them specifically to talk about programs. That's not an uncommon thing. When we were developing DR, our program manager reached out to probably 8 to 10 other utilities to determine how they develop their DR. So that's not an uncommon practice for us to do that, to learn best practices. That's not an uncommon practice for us.
Okay. So when you say that this is an ongoing conversation, is Dominion willing to commit to providing the commission with qualitative and quantitative information about what changes result from those conversations?
So we currently discuss those items in the Energy Efficiency Advisory Group. I don't know that we don't produce a report on ongoing, but that's something we typically would share with the Energy Efficiency Advisory Group. And this year alone, I think we've had 5 meetings, and that would be something typically we would share with the advisory group.
So in terms of information that's provided to the commission, there isn't information about how those conversations with other utilities would, for instance, affect customer participation or change the savings levels that result from Dominion's programs.
In our annual update, we could provide that, and we do something what's called Exhibit 1. We certainly could include that in Exhibit 1 of how we currently, what we provide as an update.
Okay, thank you.
We certainly could do that.
Are you familiar with the Consortium for Energy Efficiency?
I'm familiar with it, yes.
And that's a group of electric and gas utilities, along with some other energy efficiency nonprofit organizations that coordinate to share best practices, lessons learned, et cetera.
Yes.
Do you agree? Stakeholders in Dominion's Energy Efficiency Advisory Group have recommended that Dominion join the Consortium for Energy Efficiency. Is that right?
That's correct. And our CNI program manager has joined the group, and ICF, who represents the CNI programs, has also joined the group as a member.
Okay. Well, Mr. Steinbeck, maybe I will ask you then, since you are.
Well, let me clear that up. He's not on the implementation team. So we keep those separate. The implementation team for ICF is completely separate from the modeling team. They don't interact and they don't coordinate, and we keep them completely separate. So Joe may know them, but they're complete separate teams. So the implementation team is based here in South Carolina, boots on the ground, and work in South Carolina, and they don't deal with the planning model. Just want to clarify that. Sorry.
Okay. Well, Mr. Steinbeck, are you aware of other members of ICF that are members of the Consortium for Energy Efficiency?
I do have ICF colleagues that are members, yes.
Okay. Are you aware that firms that make, deliver, or distribute efficient products and services are excluded from membership with the Consortium for Energy Efficiency?
I am not aware of that.
Okay. Would you be surprised to learn that neither ICF nor Dominion Energy South Carolina are included on the membership list for the Consortium for Energy Efficiency?
I am not aware of that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'm having a little difficulty hearing the witnesses. They're not really speaking into their microphone.
Thank you.
Ms. Shelton, your title is Manager of Demand Side Management Administration for Dominion. Is that correct?
Actually, that was my previous title. It's Manager of Energy Efficient. I have to look at it right now. It's Demand Side Management, Energy Conservation. I did have the previous title before I was department manager. Now I'm manager of the department.
Thank you so much for correcting me. How many employees do you manage in that department?
23.
23. And are there other departments in Dominion that also work on demand side management programs in some capacity?
No, all the demand side management programs, including the electric and gas, fall under the DSM department that I manage.
Okay. And are those full-time employees for Dominion?
Yes, they are.
Okay. And that's in addition to any consultants that Dominion retains to work on these programs. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. In the Energy Efficiency Advisory Group, would you agree that typically SACE, for instance, will have one staff member participate, and CCL, same one staff member, in addition to Mr. Gravatt?
Yes.
Okay. And you're aware that their full-time job is not developing and implementing programs for Dominion, right?
Yes, certainly.
And so you can understand sometimes participants are not able to identify every single potential issue or opportunity as part of the stakeholder process, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you're also aware participation in the stakeholder group, that doesn't prevent a party from raising any unresolved issues in litigation, right?
Yes. But that is the perfect opportunity. We ask for feedback. We ask for follow-up feedback after the meeting. That's the perfect opportunity to bring up issues that we can discuss it as a group. And actually, during the program planning sessions that we had, we actually received a compliment from Witness Gravatt that we, in the beginning of the program planning sessions, I think it might have been by the third or fourth program planning sessions, we were ranking the ideas and determining in what order we should ensure that they were in the plan. And at one point, on Witness Gravat's suggestion, that we not rank them, because he said Dominion was accepting all the suggestions. It was not necessary to rank them anymore. And the advisory group no longer ranked the items in order of importance, and we have this documented in our meeting notes, because we accepted all their suggestions and their feedback. And when we don't have those in the meetings, they're free to offer suggestions 2 weeks after that. And even when the meeting minutes come out, they can still, they could come across something. When they've suggested that we review other programs or other utilities, we're always open to taking those suggestions. We're glad to review other utilities. We're glad to do that. That's not an issue. We have no issue doing that.
Okay. You would agree, wouldn't you, that while there have been some issues resolved through the advisory group, the participants have still raised a number of concerns with Dominion's approach that have not been resolved?
I certainly agree with that, but we never get solid. We certainly get pushback that we don't do enough, but we don't get solid recommendations on how we should fix them. So we hear do more, but we don't get any recommendations that are solid to follow to improve. So, there's a key component, and it involves our customers, and our customers have to want to participate. They have to, it has to be, energy efficiency has to be top of mind for them. And, I can tell you, following Storm Helene, energy efficiency, will take a back seat for a little while. Energy was very important the last couple of weeks. People wanted their energy back on, their electricity back on. Energy efficiency will take a back seat for a little while. And it is very hard to get that back on track and to tell customers, hey, we send out monthly emails and bill-on certs to over 500,000 customers a month, and constantly promote. We have Pandora, Spotify of radio ads that go out every month, particularly highlighting our HVAC and our home energy checkup program. We're out in the community, going to events, festivals, and talking about our programs, cross-linking our programs. But customers have to want to participate. And that's the missing factor that, we can't seem to, our customers in our service territory. I've been doing this since the inception of the department, and we just cannot. There are customers that are greatly involved, and then there are customers that it is just not top of mind.
Okay. So when you say that Dominion did not receive any suggestions on this, again, earlier, you confirmed that Dominion, again, has not joined the Consortium for Energy Efficiency itself, right?
So joining we did receive suggestions. We didn't receive suggestions that would increase participation. So joining the consortium would not directly lead to increasing participation. And so we received some great suggestions that we took. I can think of, removing the incentive for Tier 2 was one of the suggestions that came directly out of the Energy Efficiency Advisory Group. And we certainly tried that. And it's currently going on right now. We've tried it twice. And it increases participation, but it still does not lead to a significant number of customers participating to the levels that Mr. Gravat believes we should have participate in the program. And so it still doesn't align with what's reasonable or achievable in our service territory. And so that's the disconnect. We're very much in agreement on the advisory group about what the right measures are for us to be focusing on. That's one thing. The advisory group really brings up that we really are in alignment about a lot of the measures. And so, and we really do take their feedback. I don't want to say that we don't take their feedback. A lot of their suggestions, though, do not lead to increased participation to the levels that they suggest.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Shelton. I think what I'm trying to understand is what work that Dominion's team of, I think you said 23 full-time staff members has conducted other than waiting for suggestions from stakeholders to find out and fix any issues that are resulting in low participation in its programs.
Do you have a particular program that you would like? Because we have a portfolio of programs. I could address any one program.
Well, let me ask that. Let me make sure I'm asking a question. What work has Dominion done to reach out to other utilities that are able to achieve higher participation levels and try to incorporate any lessons learned into Dominion's programs?
So I just mentioned earlier that we have that in the fall of last year, we invited Santee Cooper on site. We brought their program managers to our facilities, and we one-on-one went through every one of their programs and every one of our programs and shared lessons learned, what they do with their programs, how they offer their programs, and did the same thing with our programs. Lessons learned, what went well, and we reached out to Georgia Power to do the same exact thing, but we couldn't get our schedules in a line last year. We tried to do the same thing with them. We did not do that same thing, but I have talked to Jean Perez with Duke. I have talked to her about their low-income program. In the development of DR, we certainly reached out to the other utilities, numerous, and we provided a list to the advisory group. I don't have the list with me, but it's in our advisory group meeting, the list of numerous, it was probably, like I said, 8 to 10 utilities. Eddie Moore even complimented the list of utilities that we reached out to during that time. We're always on the path. We also talk to Virginia on a regular basis. I probably talk to the Virginia DSM team every other month to learn about how they handle a vendor or measures or on various, our individual program managers are in regular contact with them as well. We talk to Opinion Dynamics. We talk to ICF. We have Guidehouse at our fingertips to talk to about how programs are running with other utilities. It's an ever, we're constantly asking customers what measures they like, what does well in their homes, what they keep installed. EM&V is an ever changing, EM&V goes on all throughout the year, so we're also getting input from ODC, as I mentioned. We're constantly involving the programs to make them better for customers.
Is Santee Cooper achieving higher savings levels than Dominion on energy efficiency?
I'm not aware of their savings.
Okay. How did those conversations change the program design that is presented in this 5-year plan?
I don't know that it actually does change any of the program design. But what it does is help us gear toward, because we have similar customers. So I can't say there's any one thing that changed the program design, but it helps us inform how customers respond to things. So I can't think of one thing that may have changed the program design, but it helps our program managers discuss how different questions about applications and how customers respond and how to offer programs to customers.
Okay. Have you reviewed the Energy Efficiency Advisory Group minutes?
Yes, every one of them. Yes, I have.
Okay. Looking back at those, would you agree that stakeholders have shared concerns that Dominion was, and this is, I think, a quote from the meeting 4 minutes, contributing, wanted to confirm that Dominion was contributing and laying out improvements and ideas, as opposed to only directional ideas coming from the stakeholders.
Chair Powers, if I could interpose an objection, proper procedure on these type of things when the document is not in evidence would be for counsel to present the document and the purported quote to the witness to verify before proceeding. We ask that you do so, please.
Certainly, have you have something you can show her?
I do not have something I could show her easily, but I really am just asking if she is aware of these types of concerns being raised at the advisory group. She said that she had recently reviewed the meeting minutes. And so if she doesn't recall, she could certainly say that.
She can answer if she knows. If she doesn't, she can say she doesn't know. And then we can move on.
I don't recall specific minutes like that, but I'll review every set of minutes after we have the meeting.
Okay. Do you recall stakeholders in general raising concerns that Dominion was not bringing enough proactive suggestions and recommendations?
At various times, yes, they have brought up. This is not a new issue that they have brought up. Yes.
Okay. Do you also recall stakeholders raising concerns about Dominion's reliance on behavioral programs?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Do you also recall stakeholders raising concerns about Dominion's approach not seeking pathways to achieve higher levels of savings than were identified in the potential study?
Yes.
Okay. And do you also recall any concerns from stakeholders about putting a lot of time into the process and ultimately feeling like that was not worth their time and effort?
I don't recall them saying they did not think that was worth their time or effort. I don't recall any of the stakeholders saying that. They may have said that, but I don't recall that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Shelton. Those are all of my questions.
Thank you, Ms. Mixon. Next, South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs. Any questions? Mr. Hall, the floor is yours.
Mr. Chair, before I get started, we have one potential exhibit and another document we're going to use. I was going to have my co-counsel go ahead and hand those out now rather than, I'll be a little bit before I get to it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And we have copies for commissioners too, if that's appropriate now. Yes. Yes. And can hand some up to Ms. Hill. Yes. And like I said, I'm not going to start with those, but if it's okay, I'll start with my other questions. Ms.
Can
Sheldon.
you identify these first? If we're gonna-
Sure. One of the single-page front to back document is just a copy of what we believe is the most recent rider for these programs. The other are responses to discovery and provided by the company to ORS, and some summaries and calculations based on those responses.
Okay, all these things that the company would have or would have had in advance.
They are just now getting them. The three spreadsheet-looking documents are from the company themselves. The others are numbers from those documents, and I was going to explain that a little bit further when we get to it.
Mr. Chairman, I heard Mr. Hall say that these were documents provided in discovery. Was that in this docket, Mr. Hall, or another docket?
In this docket.
Okay.
I have the response. I did not include it with the handout, but I can provide that. Like I said, if it's okay with everybody, it'll be very clear when I get to those.
Okay, very good.
Okay. I think Mr. Shambach, Ms. Shelton, I think Mr. Shambach, you're off the hook with me too, but we'll see. Ms. Shelton, before I get to my questions, I wanted to ask about something that you were talking with Ms. Mixon about. And correct me if I'm wrong. You said about approximately 58% of customers are actively interested in your DSM programs.
58%, based on the ODC market study, 58% of our customers are concerned or interested in energy efficiency.
Okay, and was that 58% of residential or of all customers?
Residential customers.
Okay.
Overall. And then I was bringing that up because that just shows the barriers that we have. That means the remaining customers. It's harder to influence the remaining customers.
And then just to clarify, it was residential. You also said something to the effect of 80% are non-low income, and those have an even higher percentage that are not really interested?
Right. So 80% of our customers are considered non-low income, and 20% are low income.
Okay.
And those low income customers tend to be more concerned about their electric bill than the non-low income.
Okay. Thank you for that. Sorry. Thank you for that clarification. So I believe you also kind of answered this, but is it correct to say that you basically run Dominion's EE and DSM programs?
I do, yeah.
Okay. And in its request, this is just something I was trying to understand. Dominion's case caption only refers to DSM and a DSM rider. Is it accurate that this docket or request applies to both energy efficiency and DSM?
Yes.
Okay. So Dominion just refers to it all as DSM?
Yes. I don't know the reason why it's called DSM or EE, but
And I was just asking, there was a recent Duke docket, their annual update that used both terms, and so I just wanted to make sure. Thank you. And is it accurate that under commission procedures, these programs are reviewed annually?
That's correct.
Okay, but every 5 years, there's a deeper dive, and that's what we're doing today, right?
In the beginning, it was 3 years, and then we have filed for 5 years. Yes.
Do you know how and when that procedure was established?
Originally since the inception of the programs, and I think it was order 2019-880, in the beginning, or 2009-880, I think, the original order, but it established when the programs are originally approved.
Okay.
Might have that order wrong.
Okay. Thank you. And as part of this docket, Dominion is asking the PSC to reapprove, and I'm quoting from the request, the rate rider mechanism that allows recovery of DESC's cost and lost net margin revenue associated with its DSM programs, along with an appropriate incentive for investing in the programs. Does that sound right?
That's correct, yes.
And the mechanism, that covers how much customers are charged?
Yes, that's the three components of the DSM rider. That's correct.
Does the request that Dominion filed include the actual charges to each customer class?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Could you tell me where that is?
Well, you just handed out the retail rates.
Yes. If that's where it's included.
Yeah.
Was the tariff included with the filing?
So there was an estimate and you handed this out too. This actually is an estimate that you provided. This is an estimate if we were to receive approval for what it would be if the application as filed is approved.
Is that number the new DSM component of residential customers' bills or any other class of customers? Was that included in the filing, in the request from Dominion?
I believe it was not. It was filed, I think we had an obligation to provide it to ORS as requested.
Okay. But the company.
But we did tell, I'm sorry, did I over?
No, please finish.
I think we did tell customers what the estimate would be.
Did the company tell the commission what a residential customer's new charge would be, or what a commercial customer's new charge would be, or what an industrial customer's new charge would be?
We specifically stated in our application what the estimate would be for residential customers. Yes, in the application.
And I believe you're referring to the 91 cent per month increase.
Correct. And that's what's in this that you've handed out.
Okay, but nothing for commercial or industrial customers, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And the actual, and we'll get into this in a minute, and that's why we handed you the sheet, but nothing, the actual DSM component, the 0.02 or 0.0222, whatever that number is, none of that was included in the company's request or your testimony, is that right?
No.
Okay, thank you. So how much is Dominion proposing to charge each customer class per kilowatt hour?
So it's listed on this rider, that you, the rider sheet that you, and it's also proposed here. But the increase to residential customers, an average residential customer bill right now is $147.87. I'm fairly certain I have that number right. And it would be an increase of 0.61% or 91 cents per 1,000 kilowatt hours.
Okay, and I just want to make sure what
as prepared.
Sorry, and what I handed you, get a little bit ahead, but this is the current rider. Am I correct? At the bottom it says
this is not the current rider. Okay. This is the details for the proposed rider if our application is approved. Our proposed, the January filing was the rider. We had a rider that we filed in January, and there was a document that went with that as well.
Okay, and I don't know the answer to this question, so that's sometimes dangerous for an attorney, right? But so this one at the bottom, if you look at page 1, it says effective for service rendered on or after September 1st, 2024, pursuant to Public Service Commission Order 2024-610.
So where are you reading from? Oh, you're reading from the rider sheet.
Yes.
So in January, this was a unique year for the DSM rider. So in January, we filed our DSM program update, which includes our program expenses and the 3 components of the rider. That goes into effect in May. And you'll see on this sheet that the rider would have updated in May as normal, as it normally does every year. Then we had a rate case. And due to the rate case, factors in DSM reset. And so that's where you see this rider comes into place. And there were changes made during that period. And then that's why you see the September number.
Okay, I think I'm following you.
And then this estimate was filed when, along with the package for the DSM programs.
So looking at the first page, the residential DSM factor of 0.00204.
Correct.
Is that the component of a residential customer's bill that they are paying now?
Correct.
And that number, though, is going to increase potentially based on what the commission does in this case?
That is correct.
Okay. So whatever that new number is was not included in this filing? Or is that from the January or May?
Right. So in January would not have been included because we had not filed our application for and petition for the new program. So that estimate had not been included yet.
Okay, thank you. Again, the process was a little confusing, just trying to help understand, so I appreciate
It
it.
was a unique year for
So
the rider.
does the company's current request also include approval of actual costs associated with the programs?
Yes, it does.
Are those actual costs noted in the request?
Yes, they're explained in this document as well.
Were the
And
cost?
if you look at the application, there's a table 1
Okay.
that included the comprehensive program plan. There's a table 1 that lists the program expenses over the 5-year program period, and it's $137 million for the programs over a 5-year program, and it's listed by program.
Thank you. Is Dominion asking to recover more than that 137 million in the docket?
No, we are not.
So as the manager of the DSM programs at Dominion, you're aware of how the Dominion funds the programs, I assume, correct?
I am. Yes, I am.
Are those funded with equity, debt, a combination of it? How are they funded?
So they're funded with company funds. So we spend the money, and then we file and submit those funds to the commission for approval. And those funds are audited. The program expenses are audited. And if they're approved, we amortize over those program funds over 3 years, and we receive recovery on those over a 3-year time period.
And so it's fair to say that they are funded by both debt and equity.
There is the amortization of the funds that we don't receive 100% back, they're amortized over 3 years. We receive the weighted average cost of debt on the funds that we don't receive recovery on.
Why does the company use its debt rate for financing DSM?
That's historically been the way we've done it since the inception. Well, since I think it changed at some point, but that's a traditional method that we've used.
If Dominion were going to build a new generation plant, how would it be funded?
I can't speak to that. I'm not a financial expert in the area of finance and
Would you generally agree it's from the same pot of money that the DSM programs are being funded from?
I'm not aware of that. I can't answer that question.
So you don't know whether it's a combination of debt and equity or just debt, just equity? You're not sure?
I would prefer someone financial in the company answer that question.
Thank you. I think you've said this, but one of your recommendations is to reaffirm the DSM rate rider mechanism. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So now I was getting to some of the questions I had about the rider itself, which you and the commissioners and all the attorneys in the room should have a copy. And I guess, Mr. Chair, was not included with the request. So I just asked, and it's obviously the current approved rider would like the commission just to take judicial notice of the company's rider that we're discussing.
It's in the application, isn't it?
I do not believe it is. Okay, thank you.
We can take judicial notice to what it is.
Yes, thank you. So Ms. Shelton, I'm looking at page 1 of the rider, towards the bottom under a heading opt-out provision. Do you see that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, would it be correct that there are 2 ways to be eligible for opt-outs?
They have to have both annual consumption, and they have to be in a certain SIC or standard industrial classification to opt out. It's geared toward our largest industrial customers, And it goes back to the original settlement agreement all the way back to 2009. It has been tweaked a little bit over the years, but yes, our largest industrial customers are able to opt out of our DSM programs.
And thank you. I was going to ask you a little bit about the history too, but let me ask you, where you're reading that, you're saying there's two things. That's in number 2 below opt-out provisions. Is that right?
Correct.
And what about number 1? It says customers eligible for rate 23 are eligible to opt out of DSM programs.
That is correct, yes.
So would that be, those would be your large general service customers, right?
Yes.
Okay. So it's number 1, just again, trying to understand, it's number 1 there stands apart from number 2. And number 2 requires that there be annual consumption of 1 million kilowatt hours and certain industry classification systems. Is that
Correct,
fair?
yes.
Okay. And you've referred to large industrial, but those industry classification codes would also cover large commercial customers. Is that right?
In some cases, yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. And if we look at the next page, it's just on the back side of that. I'm looking at number 4, and it references a 2013 commission order. And I believe you're getting to this. And so is it correct that opt-out provisions for industrial customers were first included in a settlement entered in 2010 in a matter involving SCE&G?
That's correct.
Okay.
Goes back to the initial approval.
Mm-hmm. And in that docket, are you aware that there were actually 2 settlements?
There were, yes.
And Commission Order 2010-472 refers to a, quote, general settlement agreement and a, quote, opt-out settlement agreement. Does that sound right?
I do. That's the beginning of my tenure with DSM. I do remember that, but I couldn't quote anything from either one of those orders. But yes, I do remember there were 2 settlement agreements.
Are you aware that the parties to the opt-out settlement agreement were SCE&G, the South Carolina Energy Users Committee, CMC Steel, and ORS?
That sounds familiar, yes.
And in 2013, I believe you referenced it, but just to clarify, are you aware that the language regarding industry codes was added allowing some commercial customers to opt out?
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware that that was also the result of a settlement between ORS, SCE&G, Energy Users Committee, and Walmart?
I am familiar with that, yes.
Okay. And I think you mentioned this too, but in 2019, the commission made a minor revision at the request of Dominion to reduce the period of time during which a customer must remain in the program after accepting benefits from 5 years to 3 years.
I do recall that, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so in number 4, again on page 2 of the rider, it mentions that a customer opting out needs to submit a form to the company indicating, quote, that they have already implemented or will be implementing alternative DSM programs. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Are you familiar with the referenced form?
I have seen it, yes.
Okay. Was it submitted with the current request?
It was not.
Okay. Was it previously submitted and approved?
It has been submitted in several dockets. I cannot tell you what dockets. It has been submitted before.
And the rider states that that certification will be valid until withdrawn. Is that right?
Yes.
Excuse me. So in this form, does the opting out customer need to indicate what alternative DSM programs they have already implemented?
No.
Does the customer need to indicate the energy savings achieved by what has already been implemented?
No.
Does the customer need to indicate what programs and measures they plan to implement?
No.
Does the customer need to indicate the anticipated energy savings associated with the program and measure they plan to implement?
No.
Does the form require an affidavit from the opting out customer that they did implement or plan on implementing the program?
No. Can I add that we had a opt-out session at the end of last year, specifically inviting all opt-out customers and customers that participate, and had a session specifically, an Energy Efficiency Advisory Group meeting on the opt-out. It was a requirement. I think the commission asked us to have that session to ask questions specifically about opt-out Should we change our opt-out? Should we revise it? Should we make changes? And we surveyed customers, and then at the end of the survey, and it was conducted by Opinion Dynamics, the survey results then suggested that we go back to the 2022 commercial market study that recommended that no matter what DSM did or DESC did, that commercial customers would continue to stay opted out of our programs.
Okay, thank you for that. Again, under the rider, the opting out companies just have to certify that they will be implementing alternative DSM mechanisms programs. Is that right?
That is correct.
Is there a time frame for when they have to implement their own programs?
That is correct. No, there is not a time period.
There is no time.
No.
Does Dominion verify whether an opting out customer has actually implemented EEDSM programs?
There is not, but the reason why I bring up the Energy Efficiency Advisor Group, we asked some of these exact questions. Would these companies be willing to provide this information to us? And some of these companies told us that that is proprietary data, and they would not be willing to share this information with us. Some of these large industrial customers that invest in energy efficiency, it depends, it can be specific to their company, but it gives them a competitive advantage over another company because that helps them save money. And so they don't necessarily want to share that information with competitors, how they did that. And they completed a survey with Opinion Dynamics and would not be willing to share that with us. And the cost to track that information, to keep up with that information, the energy savings of programs that are not part of the DSM portfolio, our customers would have to pay for when they're not part of the program. So I just want to mention that there are reasons why we have not pursued the opt-out further.
But if I'm understanding your testimony right, no one verifies whether a company did or did not implement any DSM programs, correct? They just sign the form, they fill out the form saying they have or they will. Is that right?
That would not be a prudent use of DSM funds to investigate the energy savings or to ask questions of customers who, in a settlement agreement, have asked to not participate in DSM, to spend money investigating what they're doing or asking what they're doing. It would not be a prudent use of DSM funds.
Okay. So I'm guessing there is no enforcement mechanism if a company opts out yet does not do anything?
That would not be a prudent use of our time or energy to investigate that, and the answer is no, we do not do that.
Would you like to have more money from customers to do more DSM programs?
Certainly we would, but our intent is to encourage customers, whether it's commercial or not, to invest in energy efficiency, to influence the market to do that. And if large companies, and quite frankly, large companies, it makes perfect business sense that they would be doing this without us. If they are being influenced to do this on their own, and we are not influencing them, then it's not necessary for us to provide incentives for it. So we don't really have sure, we would always like more money to run the programs. I would not say that we wouldn't like more money, but it really is up to our customers. I personally think it's a good business decision for a company to invest in energy efficiency, but they don't necessarily need to do it through our programs to do it. It's good business sense to do it outside of our programs regardless. And if they do it on their own and they were to receive our rebate, they might be considered a free rider, and we wouldn't get credit for it anyways.
Okay, let me ask you, a residential customer, they have economic incentive to take energy efficient actions, don't they?
They do, absolutely.
And a residential customer cannot opt out, can they?
A residential customer cannot opt out, but a residential customer also doesn't have an energy manager that works for them, that is looking at every dollar they spend across their portfolio and looking and constantly trying to fine tune everything that they do to assist them with their budget. And I think that's the difference. We feel strongly that we need to provide that information to residential customers to assist them with energy efficiency. Commercial customers and large businesses already have some of those people on staff that is what they do. That is their job, is a energy efficiency manager, and that's all they do is focus on improving energy efficiency for their business.
You would agree that a household that is struggling to make their bills would do everything they can to lower that electric bill, wouldn't you?
I'd like to agree that, but sometimes they don't know. They don't know what to do. They simply do not know what to do. They think that, and the perfect example I can give you is which one is really marketed out there heavily is everyone thinks windows. Windows are replacing your windows. Everybody thinks that you have to go for something that's very expensive. You know, one of the most inexpensive thing that you can do is adjust your thermostat. That education piece is something that I feel strongly we need to educate all of our customers about. But what gets a lot of attention are windows, and windows, you know, the investment is just not out there. So, you know, you can pay $8,000 to $10,000 for windows. Will you save on your electricity? Yes, you probably will, but the payback for windows could be 15 years. So I really think that residential customers need that education and that assistance. So through either our home energy checkup program or our home energy reports, it's just not a fair comparison between a residential customer and an industrial customer. It's just not a fair comparison.
But if I understand your prior testimony, a commercial customer who may or may not do anything can opt out, whereas a residential customer cannot, correct?
Correct. But a residential customer that participates in one program more than likely offsets that DSM rider increase. One program.
Do the programs that residential customers participate in, those provide benefits to the entire Dominion system, right?
They do.
Okay. So so a commercial customer or a large industrial customer is seeing the benefit of residential programs, right?
To a certain extent, yes.
Delayed generation is being one of those system benefits?
Potentially, yes.
On page 4, line 16 of your direct testimony, I'll give you a second to get there. I'll read it, and when you get there, just tell me if I misrepresented it. You mentioned cost effectiveness being a statutory requirement of DSM programs. Does that sound right?
I don't have page 16. I'm going to have to use Joe's copy. I don't have page 16 for some reason. Thank you, Joe. You said page 16, line 4. Okay.
Page 4, line 16.
Oh,
Other way.
Okay, I did have that. I apologize. And that does sound like something I would say.
And my question, I guess, was based on that line. You mentioned cost effectiveness being a statutory requirement for DSM programs.
Yes, that's correct.
So as being the manager and given that testimony, I assume you've read the DSM statute. Is that right?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Does the statute mention anything about opt-outs for any customers or customer class?
It does not.
Okay. Does the statute mention how program costs are to be allocated?
It does not specifically mention program cost. What it does say, it does allow us to recover cost and obtain a reasonable rate of return on our investment in the programs.
And it says that it has to be sufficient to make the programs at least as financially attractive as construction of new generation facilities. Is that
It
right?
does say that, yes.
And does it also state that the commission must establish rates and charges that ensure the net income of a utility is at least as high as the net income would have been if the energy conservation measures had not been implemented?
Correct, it does say that.
So I want to talk a little bit more about that.
Okay.
I think you covered all these, but I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. So as of now, the company's going to get cost recovery, carrying costs at its cost of debt, net lost revenues, and a shared savings incentive for the programs. Is that right?
That is correct, yes.
Did I miss anything there?
No.
Okay. And the company is asking for a 9.9% shared savings incentive, is that right?
That is correct.
And that's nearly as high as the company's current ROE of 9.94. Would you agree?
Yes, it is.
And it's higher than the company's 7.93% overall rate of return that was ordered in the last electric rate case. Is that right?
It may be higher than that, but it's less than our peer utilities receive.
You testified in the company's gas EE docket, EE case docket 2021-361G. Is that right?
Yes, I did.
Sir, are you aware that in that docket, in order 2022-644, the commission set the shared savings incentive rate of 8.14% because it was the utility's allowed rate of return under the RSA at the time?
I am familiar with that, yes.
Would you also agree that the allowed earnings of a utility on rate-based investments is based on the rate of return and not the ROE?
I would agree that that was what was done in the gas. But I would not agree that that is historically how we've been how we've received incentives for the demand side management programs previously. Historically, we've received the net benefits, 9.9% of the net benefits, and the customers have received the other 90% of the benefits. That's very typical that utilities receive an incentive very similar to that.
And that wasn't, I appreciate that. That wasn't quite my question. What I was asking was, would you agree that the allowed earnings for a utility on rate-based investments is based on the rate of return?
I did get that confused. I apologize. I did
So
get
a
that
utility's rate-based investments are allowed to earn the rate of return, not the ROE. Is that right?
So there are utilities that have that as well, but the most common is return on equity. That is more common than return on investment. I mean, rate of return, excuse me.
A utility earns its rate of return on its rate-based investments. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So again, you stated you weren't sure about funding for a new generating facility. Would you agree that if the company were to build a new generating facility, its rates, it would get cost recovery and the rate of return applied to the cost for that generating facility?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
But historically, we've got the return on equity is what we've received.
Is it correct that, would you agree that a new generating plant is going to require a larger initial capital investment than an EE or DSM program?
I don't know that for a fact, but I suspect that is true.
And if you don't know the answer to this, that's fine. Would you agree that the cost for a new generation plant would be amortized over 20 years or more?
That's my understanding, yes.
And Dominion would need a rate case to include those costs and rates. Is that right?
I don't know the answer to that.
That's okay. And I think you said this earlier, the EEDSM costs are going to be currently amortized over 3 years. Is that right?
That's correct.
Would you agree that this shorter cost recovery period would lessen the risk for EEDSM program cost recovery compared to constructing a new generating plant?
I I've not done any analysis to compare that to the cost of, that is out of my arena, the cost of of any generating facility and comparing that back to DSM cost. I would only be speculating.
And fair, if you don't know this either, if a hurricane came through and destroyed one of the company's gas plants, you know who would bear those costs?
I do not.
Do you think they
I mean, I could speculate, but I do not know exactly how we would cover those costs.
Mr. Shambach, do you know?
I cannot speak to the certainty on that.
Sure. So, Ms. Shelton, I'll ask about an EEDSM measure instead then. If a hurricane came through and destroyed a customer's house that had an EE measure in it, do you know who would bear those costs?
Could you repeat the question?
I'll give you an example. Let's say a residential customer installed a new HVAC system and they got their rebate from Dominion.
Mhm.
Their house was destroyed by a hurricane and that new HVAC system was destroyed. Would the company bear any cost for that HVAC system?
We would not bear any cost for that HVAC system.
Okay.
But I can tell you that we would, if they were to apply for another rebate, we would take that into consideration, and there would not be a limitation on them applying for another rebate, because we did have situations following the October 2017 flood, where customers would have been limited to a certain number of rebates for something, and they had flood, and we waived any kind of concerns with that. We will not eliminate customers that had issues related about that, but we do not do full replacements currently.
And for any EE measure, it's the customer that owns that measure, right?
That is correct.
I do want to ask you a little bit more detail about back to the rider that we were looking at earlier. So on page 1, in the middle, I'm looking at the formula A equals D divided by S. And would you agree that formula is how you get the rates that are listed above it for each customer class?
Yes.
Okay. And the D is the class-specific DSM program revenue requirement? Is that right?
Yes.
And then you divide that by S, the projected customer class-specific sales. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And the D in that formula is comprised of 3 components labeled C, L, and R. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Again, I know it's here, but just to walk through the C is 2 parts. First is a 1-year amortization of actual DSM program expenses, while the second is financial carrying cost of the amortization based on Dominion's weighted average cost of debt. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. You would agree that another term for financial carrying cost is a rate of return?
Could you repeat the question,
Do you
please?
agree another term for financial carrying cost is a rate of return?
I don't know if I would say that.
That's fine. Can you confirm that Dominion's current weighted average cost of debt is 5.62%?
It may be currently. That sounds very right. It typically ranges between 5 and 6%.
Okay, now I want to get into the other documents that we handed you.
Okay.
And just to, I think I explained this a little bit earlier. So this is the first 3 pages that are, we separated them and I'll explain why, but the first 3 pages that look like Excel spreadsheets are different work papers that Dominion provided in response to ORS 1-10, which asked Dominion to support the 91 cent per month increase for residential customers. Does that sound familiar?
Yes, it does.
And you are one of the people responsible for that response?
Yes.
Okay. And so these three sheets, the headings don't match what the files themselves were called, but the files were, one was DSM program cost, energy savings, and net benefits estimates for 2025 filing. Another one, the second was margin revenue estimates, DSM, and the third was DSM rate filing 2025 estimate. Does that sound roughly familiar?
Yes, I'm most familiar with the first and last.
Mr. Chairman, I hate to interrupt, but if these were, can we inquire of utility council if any of this material is confidential that we need to be careful about disclosing?
I believe Mr. Hall is talking about the stapled 8.5 by 14 documents that you circulated to us.
That's correct.
Those are not confidential.
Thank you.
Now, there might be a confidential discussion that needs to be had in regards to another one, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Thank you.
And what else, Ms. Shelton, the last 3 pages, the separate document, are with the heading calculation summaries, are summaries and calculations based on the numbers in this spreadsheet that I'd like to walk through. And we've separated them, and so it may be easier for you to kind of keep them side by side. I know it's a little difficult, but I'll try to go slowly through them. But again, it might be helpful to kind of have them side by side, just to help me verify a few things. So looking at the first large, we'll call them the large, number 1. Actually, I forgot, the pages are labeled with pages 1 of 6, 2 of 6, 3 of 6. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So looking at page 1 of 6, would you agree that for program years 13, 14, and 15, the company forecast actual program expenses of approximately $78.7 million? And I understand you're not, probably can't do that math on your head, so
You're correct.
And so where I'm looking is at the bottom row, program expense. You see the column program expenses. We have $26,524,000. Moving over to program year 14, $24,610,000, and over to program year 15, $27,555,000. You see that?
Yep.
And calculation sheet that we gave you, just so subject to check, would you agree that those numbers add up to approximately $78.69 million?
I would, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I think, Roger, were you now referencing the calculation summary document as well?
That's right.
All right, Mr. Chair, under Rule 1006 of the Rules of Evidence, summaries are only allowed if the material is too voluminous to be considered by a tribunal or court. This is a spreadsheet with 1 page worth of data. It is inadmissible.
And
in this
Mr. Chair, if I
proceeding.
may I respond?
Go ahead.
Well, I guess my first question is Mr. Richardson the counsel for these witnesses, or is my understanding is under South Carolina rules, only 1 attorney can handle the witnesses at a time?
Well, that's normally the rule. I would entertain his objection anyway, though.
Okay. Well, in response to his objection, I would agree that, I would disagree that these are not voluminous. Obviously, these are spreadsheets. Yes, they're only 3 pages. They are calculations behind them that we're going to get into a little bit further. There are a lot of numbers. There might be 3 pages, but as you can see, there's a lot of numbers. There's a lot of math that was done by the company to get to these. This was simply a way for the commission and the witness to better understand the numbers that were there. I submit that all but a few of the numbers that are walked through in these calculations, which I believe Rule 1006 allows to help someone help the court, in this case the commission, understand the numbers. As long as under the rule, I have it that essentially that the numbers are verifiable. Courts have typically allowed it.
Well, I think we're dealing with more than summaries, certainly with the application.
And if I may, I'm sorry to interrupt you. The rule itself also allows calculations. It states, 1006, the contents of voluminous writings, recordings, or photographs which cannot be conveniently examined in court, which I would suspect these are, may be presented in the form of a chart, summary, or calculation, provided the underlying data are admissible into evidence.
Okay. Well, numbers can be helpful, but numbers can be overwhelming too if you give us too many of them. I'm hoping we kind of move on with this a little bit.
I apologize. I will try to move through it, and that's again why we wanted to provide this summary.
Thank you. Overruled.
And I do apologize that it might be a little bit tedious, but I think it's helpful to understand these numbers. So I'll try to get through them without too much time. So Ms. Shelton, so we established the company estimates or forecasts actual program expenses of $78.7 million. Is that right?
That is correct for those 3 years combined.
Bear with me 1 minute, get back to my sheet here. And the 5.62% return cost of debt that we talked about earlier, that is going to be applied to that $78.7 million. Is that right?
Let me further explain how the program expenses occur. So in the program year, and I'll use the last program expense. So let's start with the 26, the very first program year that you have on here, program year 13. We spend those expenses in the current year, just like we're spending program year 14 expenses this year. We spend those expenses, and then we file that in our January filing. That goes through an audit, and if those expenses are approved, then 1/3 of those get recovered in the rider, and then two of those years get amortized. So I see your math that you've applied the 5.62% over the $78 million. It's not quite that calculation. You know, I couldn't do the math. There's someone in the rate department that actually calculates it out for every single year that's more in depth, but it's not a straight 5.62 on the total balance like that, because each year is vintaged into program years. And each year, we amortize each program year over 3 years, starting with the vintage year. So PY13 has 3 individual programs years, and then you don't start until the program expenses occur, but you receive 1/3 the first year, and then the second year you have the remaining 2/3, and the next year you have the remaining 1/3 left. But I do want to mention that we will spend money in those programs in a program year. We spend program expenses and we file in January, and we don't recover on those expenses if they're approved until May of the following year's rider. So essentially we're floating money until we get that approval, assuming we receive full approval for those funds.
Okay. Thank you for that.
That happens every year for every rider. Mm-hmm. So it's not a straight calculation of just multiplying those program expenses by 5.62.
That's your understanding. I believe you referenced somebody else that handles that. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. But it's for each year, amortized over 3 years. So you're getting
it's vintage. Each year is a vintage year, and they're amortized over 3 years.
Okay. Thank you. Looking also at this sheet, Dominion estimates approximately 218,000 megawatt hours of energy savings over those years. Would you agree with that? Again, I'm looking at a column, the bottom row, energy savings column for each program year, and we have 77,000 plus 65,000, and then plus about another 75,000.
That appears to be correct. Yep, I can see where you've gotten that. Yes. Now I will say that those are estimates. Those are estimates. We always have estimates in, but those are trued up following EMMV results. So they're in we have forecast values in there following EMMV. We do true those numbers up if we did not achieve our savings.
Okay. Let's see, one more number from this at the bottom of the page. The company estimates net benefits for those 3 program years of approximately $45.2 million. And again, there are headings there. Do you see that?
I do.
Okay, and then on the calculation sheet, we see about 31.7 million plus 6.7 plus 6.7. See
Yep.
that?
I do.
Okay, thank you. On the second spreadsheet, this is the margin revenue analysis.
So I'm not familiar with this spreadsheet as much, but
And I think I think I only have 1 or 2 questions, but that's fine. But you did submit this. You were one of the parties that signed the discovery response. Is that right? Okay. So would you agree that this represents the non-fuel revenue for each customer class and the associated sales as of May 2023?
yes, I would.
Okay. So looking at the last column, the company estimates non-fuel revenues to be between 4.4 and 11.2 cents per kilowatt hour, depending on the customer class. You see that in yellow?
I don't dispute that. Yes.
But overall, the company's total margin estimates to be 8.2 cents per kilowatt hour. Do you see that?
I do.
Okay. So would you agree that that 218,000 megawatt hour number we talked about before at a rate of 8.2 cents per kilowatt hour would be approximately $18 million? That's at the bottom of the calculation sheet, first page.
I don't dispute your math.
And that is the lost margin revenue. That's what we're talking about.
Yes.
Correct. So the final component of the DSM rider was R. That was the shared savings incentive. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I know we're flipping around a little bit. I apologize, Mr. Chair, but back on the first page of the spreadsheets, we established that the company estimated net benefits of approximately $45.2 million. Does that sound right?
That's correct.
Okay. And so that 9.9% shared savings incentive is going to be applied to that number, correct?
Well, there's 2 components that apply to that. We do a true up. That means following evaluation, the energy savings and what we actually achieved, the net benefits are trued up as well. And so that applies. So these are the forecast values for the net benefits, the estimated forecast values. And then we true that up with actual results based on EM&D. So those will be trued up as well. And for a program that did not achieve, that was not cost effective, we would not achieve any shared savings incentive on those programs. So you can't just necessarily assume that we would achieve that entire amount.
Okay. I appreciate that. Looking at the calculations, would you agree that 9.9% of 45.2 million is approximately 4.5 million?
I wouldn't disagree with your math, no.
So I know we had some discussion about maybe the number, there's some true up and some, there maybe not, it's not straightforward, but we covered what the company can recover. So we had roughly 78.7 million in program expenses. I understand the 3-year difference at the 4.5 million may not be quite right, but here we had estimated at $13.3 million, $18 million in net loss revenue, and 4.5 million in shared savings incentive that I submit to you, shown on the sheet, is $114.5 million. Would you agree with that?
I agree with your calculations, but there is a true up that occurs every year, and that assumes that we spend every dollar of the program expenses.
And we're at least in the ballpark, right? Because you stated earlier, I believe it was $137 million that the company was seeking to recover in this
That
case?
is our forecast for the next 5 years. Yes, the program expenses are.
So you agree we're in the hundreds of millions of dollars thing. Would you agree that that is more than the 78.7 million in program expenses?
I would agree 114 is more than 78, yes.
Would you agree it's getting near the 50% more? Would you agree with that?
Yes, but that is not the amount that we necessarily will recover.
So I'm going to look at the third spreadsheet that was provided in response to ORS 1-10. Would you agree that this, and I'm looking at the kind of second column from the left under description, would you agree that this exhibit calculates and shows the amortization of DSM program costs with carrying cost, the estimated net loss revenues, and the shared savings incentive?
Yes.
Okay. And this estimates total DSM cost for recovery of approximately $44.3 million. Do you see that?
I do.
Okay. And at the top there, the first row, there's only $28.4 million associated with the amortized program costs. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
So this worksheet also calculates projected May 2025 DSM factors. Do you see those?
I do.
Okay, then for the commission and others in the room, that is the three yellow rows towards the bottom. It's the top one. To the far right, you'll see projected May 2025 factors. And those range between 0.043 for the large general service and 0.4 for the small general service. Do you see that? And that's cents per kilowatt hour.
Those are actually dollars per kilowatt hour. It's easier though, actually, to be honest, to read it in cents per
Yeah, well,
per kilowatt hour. I personally prefer to read it in cents per kilowatt as well.
And I took a couple zeros out. So right, for clarification, right, if we look at large general service, it says 0.00043. Again, you're saying dollars per kilowatt. I used 0.043 cents per kilowatt. Okay, thank you for that. And the estimated May 2025 factor for the residential customer class is either $0.00295 per kilowatt hour or 0.295 cents per kilowatt hour. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And from the rider, we talked about this earlier, we saw that's determined by taking the customer class allocated DSM cost and dividing them by the gross sales projections for the customer class, minus any opt-out customers. Is that right?
That's correct.
And so on this spreadsheet also, we can see, for example, the residential customer class, let's see, is allocated approximately $25.8 million in DSM costs. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, and again, that's for the sake of the commission under residential column at the bottom of total DSM cost recovery, $25,784,000. And that is divided by the gross sales projections of 8,727 gigawatt hours. Is that right? The number below that, gross sales projection?
Correct.
And to arrive at the 0.295 cents per kilowatt hour. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So I want to look a little bit more to see what the rate would be if the DSM component was calculated on a system-wide basis rather than customer class basis. So we cover this, but again, you agree that the company estimates $44.3 million in DSM costs system-wide for May 2025. And I'm looking at the, from May 2025 to April 2026. That's the total column in the last row.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the company estimates total system-wide sales from non-opt-out customers of 17,280 gigawatt hours. And again, I'll give you that by looking at the, let's explain this to the commission. In the middle, the row right above the three yellow rows, we see 8,727.3, 3,873, 1,759, and 2,920. Do you agree with that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so that's roughly 17,280. So would you agree that 44.3 million divided by 17,280 would result in a system-wide component of approximately 0.256 cents per kilowatt hour?
I've never done this calculation before or considered it like this, but I assume your math is correct.
And I'll show you, just if you're looking at page 5 of 6 on the calculations, I'm at the third row from
Yeah.
the bottom. So we're just showing the math. It's the formula that's in the tariff, right? The sales divided by.
Yep.
Okay. And so would you agree that 0.256 cents per kilowatt hour is less than the estimated 0.295 cents per kilowatt hour for the residential class the company's asking for in this docket?
I do.
And looking at the small general service column on this spreadsheet, they are getting 0.40 cents per kilowatt hour under Dominion's proposal. Is that right?
That is correct.
And so 0.256 cents, if it was taken on system basis, that's nearly 40% less for the commercial class. Would you agree?
Based on your calculation, yes.
So we talked about 17,280 gigawatt hours. That is the total sales for non-opt-out customers, but the total for all customers is higher than that, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so I'm looking, we see below, there's a blue line, or blue numbers in a line with the percentages of the opt-out customers. And below that, those are the non-opt-out customer gross sales. Would you agree?
Yes, I would agree.
So if we add up the 8,727, 3,873, 1,759, and 2,920, or maybe I get that wrong. Oh, I'm sorry. We're looking at actually at the yellow line. Let me back up a little bit for the record. So the top line is the gross sales projection. It says that on the far left, right? Yeah. So 8,723, 3,908, 1,918, and 7,560 is approximately 22,114 gigawatt hours. Would you agree?
I do.
Okay. So nearly 28% of the company's estimated gigawatt hour sales is associated with opt-out customers, right?
That's correct. That's close to the percent. We file that, report that to the commission in our annual filing. ORS asks that question every year. But I go back to that energy efficiency, that special opt-out. It wasn't just an energy efficiency meeting, but it was, the commission asked us to review our opt-out procedure, and the process of opt-out with customers. And we brought and invited all large customers that have opted out and those that haven't. And we invited them to a session specifically about opt-out. And I don't disagree with any of your math, but the issue of our opt-out and our settlement agreement and the process of opt-out and why we have opt-out, we've continuously heard the same thing from our largest industrial customers is they are completing energy efficiency for their own business reasons and are not interested in participating in DSM, which would mean they would have to participate in the rider. They are, as a part of their business, completing energy efficiency projects, which is really what we want them to do, regardless of whether we provide rebates and are providing incentives for them or have an implementer running a program for them to participate in. We really just want them to have programs. On their own is fine with us. We don't have a preference for them, which way for them to do it. If they want to opt out, they're fine to opt out. If they want to opt in, they're also allowed to do that as well.
And I appreciate that you have those the collective or the work groups. Are there individual residential customers as part of those?
The individuals that are on the advisory group, some of them are individual customers that pay the rider. Some of them are not. They represent individual residential customers.
Have you polled residential customers to see if they'd like the ability to opt out?
No, we have not.
And I think I just have a couple board numbers questions for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, the one of the drivers for the original offerings to have DSM is the request for customers for DSM, or at the time it was SC&G, to offer programs to customers. We are asked all the time. Matter of fact, in the ODC market study, and I'm pointing to my book, but I don't actually happen to have it with me. But in the market study, one of the first places that people go when they have a concern or question about their electric bill is they come to us. They want assistance on energy education from us. They come to us for help and assistance, and they ask for programs. So residential customers actually asked us for programs. Industrial customers have not asked us for programs. It goes back to the same thing. Some industrial customers or large commercial customers have a whole team of energy managers, not just one energy managers, but maybe a team. And residential customers, though there are, and I agree with you, there are customers that are very attuned and pay attention to their bill. But there are other customers that don't know where to start. And they need the education and the assistance of our programs.
I appreciate that. And if there's a couple more numbers to see what the impact on residential customers
Certainly.
from those opt-outs are, if you don't mind. So we had $44.3 million was the DSM cost from May 25 to 2026. So if we divided that by the 22,114 gigawatt hours, that's inclusive of opt-out customers, we would get 0.002003 cents per, or excuse me, 0.2 cents per kilowatt hour. Roughly, you agree based on the
I don't
formula that I
dispute
have
your
there?
math, correct.
Yes.
I don't.
And so again, in this case, the company is asking for 0.295 cents per kilowatt hour. But if all customers are included, do you agree that 0.2 cents, it would be 32% less for residential customers? Again, the math, second to last equation on the sheet.
I mean, I don't dispute your math at all.
Okay.
I have no reason to.
And again, if in small general service customers, the company is asking for 0.4 cents per kilowatt hour, and under including all customers paying for everything, it would be 0.2 cents. So the rate would be half for small commercial customers. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with your math, but I will say that both a residential customer and a small general service customer, particularly if a small general service customer or a small business customer participated in our Small Business Energy Solutions program, it more than pays for the rider, or their offsets any costs that they had associated with their rider. Our small business program pays 90% of a project cost, and they pay 10% of lighting and HVAC. It's a great program, and they don't have an energy manager. So our program, we go in, we assess and their business, give them information about what upgrades they can do, and then it's a turnkey program. We go in and install the lighting for them and provide an incentive, and it more than offsets the rider. Same thing for the residential programs. If a customer participates in our program, it more than offsets the rider. And I don't know exactly the Duke rider. I don't know the exact amount, but I know ours is lower.
And I'm not disputing that the EE programs are good for people that participate in them, that there are benefits. But you would agree, based on these numbers, that they would cost the small general service customers and the residential customers far less if all Dominion customers helped pay for it, right?
I would agree with that, but we have visited that topic, and it doesn't seem a path to get the opt-out. We visited that with the advisor group on more than one occasion, ways to engage those customers to participate, and we have not been successful in getting them to participate.
That decision's ultimately up to this commission, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes. And we followed an order to present information to them, hold that special advisory group session, and present that data. And we did that in our January filing. We presented that data in January after having the advisory group in October of last year.
Would you agree that if the commission wanted to hear from more customers, they could open a generic docket to invite more comments instead of having them just held behind, with Dominion?
Yes, it was held with the entire advisory group. It was just not Dominion. It was held with the entire advisory group.
But would you agree if the commission wanted to hear all that themselves, they could open a general docket to hear those issues directly?
Yes, they could.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, that's all my questions. I would move to have DCA Exhibit 1, pages 1 through 6, entered as the next applicable hearing exhibit. Okay, thank you.
All right, we're gonna take a short break, maybe be back here at 3:15. And I think Walmart, Ms. Eaton, you'd be next if you have questions, and we'll try and wrap it up. As far as the witnesses, Ms. Shelton and Ms. Schumbach, you're still under oath. Don't discuss your testimony with anyone, and we'll be back very shortly. Thank you. We're in Good afternoon. We're back on the record on the case involving Dominion Energy's request to approve the portfolio of demand-side management programs and other issues. We're in the middle of questioning the Dominion witnesses. It's my understanding, Mr. Anselmo, you had something you wanted to address.
Well, I believe, I just want to level set, make sure the company understood where we were on the DCA exhibits. My understanding from the chair's ruling is that DCA Exhibit 1, page 1, 2, and 3 were admitted.
Well, they were put together as 1 through 6.
Well, you've already ruled on the summaries. I fought that battle and lost. So I just wanted to state the company has no objection to the first 3 pages of the spreadsheets. Those were documents provided by the company to ORS in discovery in this case. So that is not an issue. And my understanding is that the consumer advocate did not ask to admit the writer. That was just judicial notice. Is
That's
my
right.
understanding correct there? I think
That's
that.
right. I need Mr. Hall, you want to respond to that?
He's correct about the writer. We just asked the commission to take notice of that. I did ask to move in pages 1 through 6 of the exhibit, which I believe was granted.
And I think we've done that.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure that the rider was just judicial notice because, as the commission knows, that will become part of a docket in January along with the first 3 pages of DCA Exhibit 1. I just wanted to make sure we're all
That's all he asked for, was take judicial notice.
Yep.
Thank you.
Chair Powers.
Who's talking?
Me.
Mr. Thomas.
Just a minor little point. So on page 4 of 6, the calculation summaries, the first group of numbers adds up to 78,690,546. That number right before that, there's a digit missing. It should be 27,555,928. Just in case that matters.
I see that comma. You're correct. Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. All right, we're back on the record. Walmart, Ms. Eaton, do you have any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Bless you. ORS, any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We'll then move to commissioner questions. Any commissioner questions? Commissioner Caston.
Good afternoon. At least smile. You're smiling, Ms. Thank you. On table 1, I think you referenced in the application on page 5 that $216 million. And that said cumulative. This is for the years 2010 to 2023. Is that correct?
Excuse me, I need to turn my microphone on. I apologize. On table 1, program expenses from years 15 to 19 equal 137 million.
I understand, but I was looking at page 5, table 1 of, well, if I'm looking at the right thing, of the approval to continue its demand-side management plan, new residential demand response program.
That's the total amount we've invested in the program since the inception of the program, since 2009.
Okay, so, well, I said 2010 to 2023, but it would be 2009 to 2023.
Yes, correct. I apologize.
And that number, the $260 million, that includes all costs, such, program cost, incentives, net lost revenue.
That's program cost only. That's all the program costs that to offer to customers. That's incentives, marketing dollars, cost to implement the program, marketing, everything, all in just program cost.
And does that include the company's rate of return?
It does not.
I think I've asked you this question before in other hearings, maybe in the gas. I don't recall. And if I didn't ask it, I apologize. But would it be fair to say that almost all appliances now are energy efficient, or at least more so than 10 years ago or 20 years ago?
Yes, it would be fair to say that, yes.
And does that include like HVAC, ovens, refrigerators, dishwashers, and so on?
Yes, the majority of appliances are more efficient than they were, certainly more efficient than 20 years ago, and they're becoming more efficient all the time.
And thinking about the average person who may be watching this proceeding that may be unfamiliar with the EE and DSM programs, why is it beneficial to incentivize investing in measures that are almost universally energy efficient simply by purchasing and installing it?
Well, in the case of HVAC, there is a code level HVAC unit that is a 15 SEER unit. And then there's an Energy Star unit that is much more efficient than that, or can be 25 to 50% more efficient over the life of the equipment. And so our incentives encourage customers to purchase that equipment. Our rebates help that customer meet that price difference between the base unit that they could purchase, and encourage them to go up to the Energy Star level. Energy Star units are more expensive, and so that investment in that, our rebate helps them, encourages them to take that extra step. So they would save over the life of that piece of equipment for that energy savings. They always have the option, and a lot of customers, especially with HVAC, is the example I'm going to use, but HVAC is a very expensive investment. And when they're presented from their contractor several prices, it's very attractive to look at the cheaper piece of equipment. And so if a contractor says, here's a 15 SEER, which is base, and here's a 16 SEER, but it's Energy Star, and Dominion will pay that cost difference, we'll give you a $400 rebate, and then you would pay $400, but you'll save over the life of the equipment. It'll help reduce your energy. Then some people will invest in that higher level. And so that's a perfect example of why an incentive is encouraging customers to invest in Energy Star equipment. Anybody can buy an HVAC unit, but we're trying to encourage them to go a step above to Energy Star.
What, just out of curiosity, was that a hypothetical number, like $400? In other words,
we do have a $400 HVAC rebate.
Well, but I guess what I was trying to understand, like from the base model that's more energy efficient than those that were 10 years ago, to go to the Energy Star level, which I don't know I don't know if that's 14 SEER to 15. I don't know. But I think I understood you to say, okay, Dominion would provide $400, and the customer, if they ante up $400, they could go from that. I guess what I'm saying is that what it is, like an $800 difference between that base and the Energy Star, the next level up?
So it depends on what type of equipment they're looking at. So, and every contractor has different pricing. But let's say it could vary anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 for the equipment. The price difference could be as high as $1,000 to $2,000 difference, or $1,500 to $2,000 from a base model to an Energy Star unit, anywhere in between there. And so a contractor would say, here's the price difference, but Dominion will give you a $400 rebate, and then you could potentially put in money too. If it's only $1,000, then we're almost paying half of that incremental cost difference for them to invest in that equipment. Some customers will go much higher than that. Some customers will make the decision that it's not worth it to them. You know, it's somewhere in between, but we're trying to encourage them to at least go to the minimum Energy Star unit. We're not trying to encourage customers to go to a 25 SEER. We certainly would love them to do that, but our rebates are really just to get them to encourage them to do the first level of Energy Star.
Okay, thank you. And I'm not intentionally ignoring you, but you jump in anytime you want to, but.
Absolutely.
And thinking about the added cost to a typical residential customer's bill, and I think I'll use like 1,000 kilowatts per hour. The average residential customer, I don't know what their average bill is for Dominion. Do you know what that is?
The average residential bill currently is $147.87.
Well, I'm sorry. The average usage demand, is it 1,000 kilowatts per hour? Is it 1,100? Is it?
We typically say that is the average usage, but it really does vary by how many customers. That is very close to average usage, is 1,000 kilowatt hours per. But it does vary by customer based on how many individuals are in the home and the conditions of the home, meaning the year built and what type of equipment is in the home.
And the total cost of all these programs that's added to the customer's bill is how much?
Currently, right now, and it was provided in the rider is around 24 cents. The DSM rider per 1,000 kilowatt hours, and the last DSM rider was a 0.61% increase. Woo! It's about to really raise the rider if I said that incorrectly. 0.61% increase. This proposed, if the plan is accepted as is, would be 0.61% and 91 cents. Our last rate case, is what I started to say. On the rate case, it was 0.32% increase of the DSM rider. A customer would participate in one program. The Home Energy Checkup is a perfect example. The average customer, we estimate, if they participate in the Home Energy Checkup and we're able to do direct install, if we uninstall incandescents and we install low flow shower heads, faucet aerators, have an education discussion about their usage, review their bill, and talk to them about how to set their thermostat, the average customer will save somewhere annually, we estimate it between 300 and 500 kilowatt hours that year or annually, following the education from that program and the measures installed. Sometimes it's higher than that, but then that more than offsets, and that's what I was trying to explain earlier, is it more than offsets that rider.
Okay. But, for example, if a average bill hypothetically is $140 a month, if this program is approved, it will be $140.91 a month.
Correct, yes.
Final question, and thinking back to I think it was your rebuttal, relative to, whether the commission should have hearings or not. The benefits and drawbacks of having a hearing to expand, modify, terminate these programs, what, from Dominion's perspective, what are the benefits and drawbacks?
So we've had the flexibility to amend, edit, modify our program since the inception. And it has allowed us the flexibility to improve our programs really based on customer feedback, contractor feedback, and implementation contractors' feedback to improve the programs and energy the advisory group feedbacks to benefit customers quickly and timely over the years. And I provided several examples in my rebuttal testimony, but I'll mention a few, some that we would lose if we had to really file for every modification that we asked for. So currently we have an online store. We offer incentives to customers for smart thermostats. Every once in a while, a manufacturer will come to us and say, hey, next month we're going to have a special on our it'll be a manufacturer, and they say, we're going to have a special on a thermostat. You want to increase your rebate to align with ours, and it would benefit your customers, and you sell more thermostats for that month. And we've done that numerous times over the last 3 or 4 years and coordinate. That is a quick turnaround event that we coordinate with the manufacturer of the thermostat, and we'll increase our rebate to align with their rebate, and the customers directly benefit from that. If we had to file a request to ask for us to be able to increase that incentive, it may be only $10, but it aligns with the manufacturer's rebate. It would be, we would miss out on that opportunity because the manufacturer may only come to us, a month before they want to make that change, and we would miss out on that opportunity. Additionally, we've heard from the advisory group, it was actually a reference to the Tier 2. Could you test the market to see if eliminating the incentive that customers paid to participate in Home Energy Checkup Plus would increase participation? Following that advisory group, and we actually wrote it in our action plan, but we went ahead and tested it and set that in motion and worked to add that to that event. And we have one that just kicked off again. This is our second time doing it, where we eliminate the 25% portion that a customer would pay to see how customers are they receptive to enrolling if they don't have to pay the 25% enrollment. Is still the eligibility for customers is still the same. They still have to be a high user, an electric user, but we waive it for a limited time offer. If we had to ask for permission to do that, again, we wouldn't be able to do it around, and we did it specifically around Energy Awareness Month, which happens to be October. So we wanted to design it around October Energy Awareness Month and time it so that we could share it in our newsletter and announce it to customers in a timely manner. Also, program participation. This is one that really is kind of concerning. When one program is not doing well and another program is doing well, we can offset the loss of energy savings by increasing the program that is doing well. And it's sometimes, it was easier when we had lighting, I will say, to increase program participation in lighting when it was lighting. But if one program is doing well, we can exceed the participation number in the forecast. Now, if we are not given the flexibility to increase participation levels outside of the forecast that we have, we would need to request that and ask for that. That would mean we'd have to anticipate, okay, we have a forecast that says 1,000. Well, we're at 800. What is the timing at which we need to ask the commission permission to exceed that forecast of 1,000? And if participation was at a certain level and we got close to the 1,000, do we delay and hold off and letting customers enroll or submitting applications? That then builds insecurity in the program, if we have to tell contractors, well, you might not be able to submit an application because we need to get approval to change the application, or we have too many applications in the queue, we're getting ready to meet. And, you know, we've seen this in other jurisdictions where they do have participation numbers and forecast values that they are held to, and they do have to ask commission approval for that to exceed those values. And it does cause some complexity and limits the flexibility to you to react quickly in the marketplace. Home energy checkup, after years of having light bulbs, we would leave direct replacement kit. We'd leave a kit for customers, and through EM&V, we found out customers were not installing them. So we re-geared our whole team, retrained them on installing these measures for customers versus leaving them behind, and changed the program and added additional measures to ensure we would get savings, improve the cost effectiveness of the programs. So typically, this flexibility to edit modified have benefited our customers. We've done the same thing for small business customers. We changed, we noticed that the 80% was limiting the number of a customer would choose to do a lighting project or a HVAC project, but not both. Now we've changed that over the years so that they can do both projects. They don't have to choose between one or the other. And so that flexibility has just really benefited customers. That is really the intent behind asking for that, is to continue to allow us that flexibility.
Relative to the time frame, that 5 years, and it was previously 3 years, what are the pluses and minuses of 5 years versus 3 years, or 3 years versus 5 years?
Well, in particular for the demand response programs, you know, we're new to demand response programs. They may not pass cost effectiveness. We're certainly, that is the intent, and the design of the programs is to pass them, but we don't know how receptive our customers will be. And, you know, it does take a period of time to ramp programs up and get them out and participating. It is really more beneficial to have, you know, a 5-year. We've done portfolios under both. Our original portfolio was 3. 5 years is just a better ramp period to see how programs are running. And that's our last filing in 2019, I think actually gave us approval for 6 years, which got us to the last set of approval. But it just gives you a longer period of time to view if a program is successful than 3 years. And I think of the COVID years. If anything in the marketplace unusual happens, like some strange election, and people act differently, and codes change, and people's perception of things change, it could impact the programs, and a 3-year period may not be long enough to readjust and figure those things out versus a 5-year period. I mean, COVID certainly changed the way we responded and customers' behaviors, and that could happen. It may not happen. It's nicer to have a longer period to assess the programs.
Okay, final question then. Like with any program, or say a new proposed program, you want to modify it, expand it, or amend it, or whatever. If, say after a year, 2 years, say 3 years, the program, you know, costs more than the benefit, does the company continue to recover those costs?
We do. We do, but at some point, it is very likely that we'd bring it up at the advisory group. ORS would likely bring it up as well, because the intent is to run cost-effective programs.
Understand.
And that is our intent, is to run cost-effective programs.
But,
and
go ahead.
So yes.
So if it theoretically continued for 5 years, those costs would be recovered for 5 years, whether it's positive or negative, whether the benefit outweighs the cost.
Yes, unless we did not. Now, I will say that every year we provide program updates on what we've changed and modified in our January filing every year, and we would continue to do that. Provide updates to the advisor group. This last year, I think we've met 5 times, and then the previous year was 7 times. I might have the exact numbers wrong, but we continuously meet with the advisory group and would provide all changes to the programs and also provide that in our January filing. But if a program, typically we would not run a program for 5 years and not make changes to improve its cost effectiveness over 5 years. That's not how we've run our programs. And I'll use Home Energy Checkup as the perfect example. Home Energy Checkup really struggled as lighting standards changed. And we really had to work hard to figure out multiple things to improve that program. And that program is now cost effective. Matter of fact, it's now one of the most cost effective programs in the residential portfolio now. But it did take a few years of not being cost effective. And I think it's one of the most useful programs that we have. It's one-on-one education with the customer, with the history of their bill. It's a perfect example of one that we invested in and that I think customers benefit from. But it did struggle with cost effectiveness, a combination of ISA changes and then the pandemic had low participation years. It's a perfect example of one that did struggle with cost effectiveness.
Well, Ms. Shelton, is it Schoenbach?
Schambach.
Schambach. Thank you both. Appreciate it. No more questions.
Commissioner Belson.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Ms. Shelton, I just have a couple of clarifying questions if you don't mind. There's been some discussion today about that forecasted 91 cents.
Yes.
That might be added to bills. This application is not going to change the rider at this point, right?
No, absolutely.
And that'll be filed with the January filing.
That will file with the January filing and then would change in May of 2025.
Correct. Okay. I just want to be clear that there is no rate adjustment associated with whatever order comes out of this.
That
docket.
is correct.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
And then I think you indicated that the programs are currently approved for 6 years. Would you agree, subject to check, that is currently 5 years?
We received a 6-year approval in 2019.
No, I believe that was 5 years.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Let's walk through it. When the programs were first approved by the order in 2010, that was for 3 years. Would you agree to that?
Yes.
And then in 2013 was the next order, and that was for 6 years.
That's where I got it.
And then in 2019, it was for 5 years, and that's where we are now.
Yes, ma'am.
And y'all are asking that same 5-year period.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Belcher. Ms. Shelton, you mentioned a newsletter. I've got 2 houses owned in Dominion territory. I don't get a newsletter, do I?
If you do not opt out of receiving emails from Dominion.
Okay. Well, I'm on auto pay, and that's my other question. On auto pay, if I don't check my bill or even look at anything, how do I learn about these programs?
So it is very tricky with customers that are auto pay. We do have OnCert messages that are directly placed on the bill. It goes out to about 500 customers, but people that are paperless, that are auto pay, it is definitely trickier because they tend not to look at their bill. But we do advertise our website. We do have Spotify and Pandora that we advertise. Our general awareness campaign, which DSM does not pay for, but our company has general awareness campaign where we sponsored the news weathership forecast that leads people to the DSM programs. Now, these were not paid by DSM, but it leads them to the DSM Save Energy website page. all last year and the beginning of this year. We're out in the public, at any home energy, at any, some of the large festivals, the Latin Festival. Recently, we had the home energy checkup team there. At the home energy checkup, people refer at all NEAT kickoffs. We have a booth there referring customers to all different programs. We have contractors, I would say approximately 300 contractors that we consistently are training. We had over 8 training sessions this year already, and we're in constant communication with contractors so that when customers go to install a new HVAC unit, the contractors are already aware of our programs. It's constant communication and education about our programs. Now, the small business programs, it's literally a team of boots on the ground knocking on small businesses, letting them know that we are in their area, direct mail postcards, consistent education about the programs. But it is absolutely, you bring up a very good point. It is absolutely harder with a bill, an auto pay customer or a customer that is paperless, because paper customers tend to read and review their bill more thoroughly. Actually, in our Home Energy Reports program, which we have a paper report and an email report, the customers that save more tend to be those that receive paper, because they actually review their paper report.
Yeah.
So but it does make it, but it's more common how that people do auto pay. That is very common.
Well, even worse, one house I have is 3 years old and one is 92 years old. Well, I've had the energy checkup on the 3-year-old and have not bothered with the 92-year-old. Your charts that you laid out about the checkup program, et cetera, that's real exciting when you look at it, 100% of cost. But then I look at another chart and it says up to $75, up to $5, up to whatever. Let's just take like a thermostat, for instance. When you say 100% of cost, is that just 100% of cost to come tell me I need one, or is that 100% of cost to you're going to buy me one?
So the home energy checkup, if we complete a home energy, there's two portions of home energy checkup. There's a home energy checkup tier 1, where a Dominion employee that is BPI certified comes to your home and does a visual inspection and reviews your usage for the last 2 years. They also, if in your home you have any incandescents, they will replace those incandescents, and there's not a limit to the number of incandescents in your home. They will remove incandescents and install LEDs. Because we are able to still receive savings when a customer has incandescents still in place. If you have any other type of energy efficiency bulb, we will not remove those. But if you have incandescents, we will install LEDs. We will also install other energy efficiency measures, such as a low flow shower head, and we give you options of a handheld or not, faucet aerators, candelabra bulbs, which are bulbs that were not impacted by the ISA change in standard. Floodlights, LED floodlights, another one that typically has not had the change from ISA, and we can still receive savings for those. Water heater, if it's not a gas water heater, an electric water heater, and pipe wrap. There's several measures, and all of that is 100% of the cost. All that is free.
All that's free.
That is free. Now, if you are deemed an electric high user, that means that you are 30% over an average user, which defined by the ODC market study is you use over 10.45 kilowatt hours per square foot. Now, you would not know this, but our field reps do know this information, and they have the data before they go to your home. And you heat with electric, you're eligible for home energy checkup, what we call tier 2 or home energy checkup plus. And that program provides air sealing duct insulation and higher whole house measures, and we will pay up to 75%. Yeah, 75% off. We're in our second limited time offer where we are paying 100% of the cost. Out of a recommendation that came out of the advisory group to test, would more customers participate if we didn't have any incentive at all, if we just paid 100% of that cost? And it's as simple as we would love for more customers to participate in that, but I will tell you, it's as simple in some cases, and I've even heard this at a NEAP kickoff. Some customers simply think it's too much work. Other customers say, I don't want you in my home, it's not clean enough. I mean, it's as simple as, and some customers don't understand that it is really a real program. And then other customers will sign up and do it, or they think it's going to be too time consuming. You'll see that we kind of lose customers in each step. Which is a little, I personally wish I could participate. I mean, it is a wonderful program. We have, and this is something that has been recommended in the advisory group, to have testimonials from customers, and we're working on getting testimonials from customers that have participated in both. And I think that's going to really help to encourage other customers to do it. There's some privacy issues if you use a real customer's name, but generic names of customers that have really benefited, because it's a great program. So that's how the program works. And promoting it this month is really what we're focusing on.
The new house I built is in good shape. The other one, it's not Green Acres, but it needs some things.
Right.
But thank you very much. I was really interested in that. One more thing. As far as the opt-out, because I heard something about a form. Can a customer opt out online, or do they do that? Do they have to fill out an actual paper form to do that?
There is a form, and there's a FAQ and a form. They can access it, I believe, through the website, but they can also get the form from their large account manager. So these large industrial customers have a DESC representative that is assigned to them. They know who that a large account manager is, and they walk them through that process and how to do it.
So if I wanted an inspection or the home checkup, I go to the website or I call, either one?
Either one. Now, the home energy checkup is for residential customers. So yes, you can call in, you can go online, either one, and you can even do it from your mobile app and register. Dominion Energy Save.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Chair Powers. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here, both of you. I suspect that most of my questions are going to be from Ms. Shelton, but please jump in as you see fit. Ms. Shelton, as I listen to you talk about the application for the ways that you utilize amending, modifying, and there's a third one other than terminate. What's the other category?
Edit, modify. I might need to get it. I have it on page 5. Just let me make sure I'm not nervous and I leave something out. Modify, expand.
Expand. That's the one we were missing. Okay.
Amend.
Okay. Would you describe more? You gave us some great examples. Could you describe for the record the kinds of changes that are considered within amend, expand, and modify? You're not talking about a new program, but is there a way to categorize how you define amend, modify, and expand?
Well, within each program, it could adding measures.
Okay.
Changing the measures. Increasing the forecast number. So if we were close to the forecast number, we would increase it. And we have done that a perfect example is in the advisor group, they suggested we do single-family home for weatherization. That was a completely new offering. We just added it within the existing program. It is not the existing program. I do want to mention something about terminate, because we did previously have permission to terminate a program, and then we lost that flexibility to terminate. But I just want to mention an example of appliance recycling.
Refrigerators.
Yeah, so and just so you can understand the complexity of not having, so we had an issue with a vendor, and I won't go into great details or the names of that vendor. So we tried very hard not to end the program. So we had to suspend the program and put that on our website and inform our customer service reps that we were suspending the program. And then we actually looked for another vendor, and I actually mentioned this in previous testimony and have probably discussed this with y'all or in an update, but we did try unsuccessfully to find another vendor. And were not able to find a vendor that could do it cost effectively. Matter of fact, the changes in the market, really the pricing for transportation and picking up, and the individual salaries for the people that do that had increased so much, we could not make it cost effective. In that interim, we couldn't find another vendor. So we knew that we could not. So we knew that we were going to have to tell the commission that we have to terminate this program. But in the meantime of filing that and preparing that and then pending approval, there is confusion among our own customer service reps and customers. We continue to get calls from customers every month. You still have this program? Are you going to still? And we had to update our website that we were pending suspension of the program. And there were actually customers, unfortunately, that held on to their refrigerator, thinking that we might bring it back. Though it clearly said that it was in suspension, but we couldn't just flat out say that we could terminate it. Now, that's why it would be nice to have that flexibility. I certainly understand that there would be concern that we would just terminate any program at any time. That is not something that historically we have ever done, is just terminate a program without cause. But it did cause confusion with our own customer service reps and customers, that we didn't have permission to end the program and stop the confusion in the market and just end it. So appliance recycling was, but back to your other question, other examples. So amending the programs, changing things about an application to make it easier for customers to fill out. We could easily do that and change that at any point or time. I remember during COVID, we instantly changed the home energy checkup from a in-person visit to a virtual visit. We still have the virtual visit, and to make it cost effective, if a customer has a home that is less than 10 years, we will try to gear them to the virtual visit first. And then if we see there's installations that we could do, then we will schedule a direct install visit as well. We really are trying to be as cost effective as possible with that program and gear customers. We're also targeting customers more, but so changing the program without having to ask to change from a virtual to a home energy checkup, to a in-home to a person, or just having the option to change it is very crucial. We've done that several times. Did I answer your question?
You did.
Okay.
As long as you've kind of captured all of the elements of programs that you would seek to amend, modify, or expand. Yeah. And I heard you say you wouldn't terminate without cause. Is there a way to generically describe what you were seeking to, what kind of program elements you would be seeking to terminate if you needed to?
A measure that Following evaluation, if there is a measure that is just not cost effective, it makes no sense. I'll give one that we did when we had the flexibility to remove a measure, and we did. Ground source heat pumps. A ground source heat pump costs the average customer, which the average customer doesn't purchase. It does have a lot of savings associated with it, but could cost a customer anywhere from $20,000 to $25,000, $30,000 to install. It's a great investment if that's what you choose to do with your money. But that person, we used to provide a rebate for that, but they were 100% free riders. That $500 rebate, I'm not sure what the rebate amount was at the time we offered it, but that rebate really did not influence that $25,000 decision. And when we only received a few of those applications, and it really caused confusion, the number of questions we got and the documentation that went along with that, it was not worth providing that. They were free riders for the program. And so we ended that measure. It just, it was not cost effective to do it from an efficiency standpoint, nor should every customer pay for a rebate for something that truly we didn't influence the market to change. Okay. That was a really good, I think, a good example that everybody, I think most people would agree the average customer is not on the market for a ground source heat pump.
Okay. In prior conversation, I wondered about something that I honestly just can't remember if it's a part of the program. Is there a program for contractors?
We do not have we let all contractors, heating and cooling, HVAC, if they are licensed within the state, they are available to attend our training, and we are open to any contractor that's licensed in the state. We don't have a limit to trade allies. So,
but are all of your programs about replacing and improving as opposed to incentives for new construction? I think that's where.
Yes, we do not have, that's correct, we do not have a new construction program.
Okay. Is that anything you've ever looked at?
We have in the last study we did, and in the last ODC market study, in talking to builders, Opinion Dynamics, our third-party evaluator, said there could be further research done, but for the most part, builders in our state were building at a higher level on their own outside of our program. And they did have some comments in the residential market study about things we could do for new construction, but it was not a suggestion for a new construction program.
So if I've learned to use your language, those would be free riders.
They would.
Okay.
They would.
Okay. I, like Commissioner Caston, focused a lot on page 5 of the application that talked about, and you don't need to really go there, but the results in over 13 years and the 1.161 million kilowatt hours saved. Could you, is there a way either to take me to an element somewhere else in your in your testimony that we could compare and contrast, you know, what that savings, that net savings was over those 13 years to what we're looking at over these next 5? And there may not be, but I just wanted to sort of understand it in a simple way.
I can tell on my rebuttal testimony on it's not exact, it's not gonna give you exactly what you want, but on my rebuttal testimony on page 18, I give a snippet of the 216 that we've invested in energy efficiency, and that is a table that we shared with the advisory group. It's an infographics. It's a portion of an infographics that our third-party evaluator provides at the end of each program year. And they estimate that we've saved our customers over 1 million kilowatt hours saved since the inception of the programs. And I wish I had that full document printed out, but I don't have it with me.
If I heard you right, that's focused on the past.
Yeah,
and-
that's in the past,
Okay,
not in the future.
okay.
And so then I was gonna try to compare it to table one.
Thank you. Okay, okay.
Which is, and it is, our forecast is 2.6% more than what we filed in the potential study, based on advisor group feedback. I don't know the best comparison to compare it to what we've done in historic, and I'm just looking at you, Joe.
Yeah.
You don't have to give an answer.
In Exhibit 1 of the petition, there's another Table 1, so we're going to compare Table 1 to Table 1.
Okay.
So amount invested, we're looking cumulatively over years 15 to 19. The total dollars column would be our total.
What page?
Well, it's on page 6, but this is part of the exhibit. It's the ICF report, which is the exhibit attached to this.
Yes.
So that would be page 6 of Exhibit 1 as a Table 1. There is a column, again, this is the sum of all program years. The total dollars for the whole portfolio is $137 million. The total savings is the megawatt hours column for the whole portfolio is 326,895. That is in megawatt hours. So converting that to kilowatt hours, you'd get 326 million kilowatt hours. So rough math, a quarter of cumulative savings from the original Table 1. You're looking at 1,100 million compared to 326 million.
Over 3 years versus.
Over 5 years versus
right.
cumulative
Thank you.
1 to 13. Yes.
Okay. We covered a little bit of this, so I'm not asking for an exhaustive kind of answer, but how do you all look at national rankings of Dominion's programs versus you talked about the Southeast and the nation and versus other utility companies that you can learn from. You may have covered everything you want to say earlier, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to add to that.
Well, there is something. I appreciate the question. So one of the things that came out of the advisory group was to do benchmarking for home energy checkup.
You're getting a little soft.
Oh, I'm
to me.
sorry.
Okay, that's great.
That's not like me either. One thing that came out of the Energy Efficiency Advisory Group was it was recommended that we do benchmarking or best practices and compared to other successful programs, because at the time the program was struggling with cost effectiveness, and it also has tier 2 component that we absolutely want to do more of, and we've struggled to get more customers to participate. So we have in that process, we have not shared it with the advisory group, but we do have intentions of sharing it because the work is not complete. We asked our facilitator that facilitates the energy efficiency group, which is Guidehouse, to do a review of other successful home energy checkup programs, some of them specifically mentioned by the advisory group that were cost effective, and compare it to our programs. And I can just tell you that the preliminary results, some of the measures are exactly the same. The measures appear very exactly the same. That is where it gets difficult past that. Comparing the TRC values, the UCT values to each other is not a fair comparison. What they include in their cost recovery, what we include, it's very difficult. Every state, every jurisdiction is different, whether they have state mandates, how they report their savings are different net or gross, that it does get much trickier in how the data, if the data is publicly available or not. But reviewing the individual measures and access to some of their EMMV reports, we have had Guidehouse look at that, and we plan to share that with the advisory group for home energy checkup. We're willing to do that with any program. We also have upcoming, we're going to have some rate case settlement agreement and issues where, not issues, but some activities that we're going to complete. And I fully intend to be reaching out to Duke. I've already talked to Duke about their high use income pilot program. And Gene Perez and I have already talked and plan on talking further about how their pilot will run and how we could potentially do that as well. So that is a common practice. You know, that's one thing that's unique about the DSM-EE departments. Utilities rely on other utilities to help because there's no other department in the utility that has programs like we do. So we actually, that's just very common practice to reach out to another utility. That's common practice.
And you also described how you work with the Energy Efficiency Advisory Group. Is there anything you want to add to that? You said, I believe I heard you say 5 times 1 year, 7 times another year. Who sets the agenda? Do you meet virtually? Do you meet in person?
Prior to COVID, we actually met in person. Since COVID, we've actually voted and agreed to continue to meet both ways, but we have not actually had an in-person meeting. I think everybody prefers to meet virtually. We're open to either. We send out the agenda topics, and we typically tell the advisory group what we have proposed for the next, and then ask for feedback on any proposed topics. And we're certainly open to proposed topics.
You may have covered this as well, but the home energy checkup tier 2, there was some discussion about how you make it more appealing. Have you covered that in testimony so far, and would you remind me if you have?
So one of the things that we're doing is trying this testing of removing the 25% incentive amount.
Right. Okay.
And then also working on testimonials to share with other customers to let them see the full process of customers that have participated in it and share that with other customers. We think that would be very helpful to be able to advertise that on the web and share that out with customers. So we really think that would be important.
Okay. And tell me more about the home energy reports. And I'm asking because we heard a lot about them in the rate case. And I'm curious how they incentivize customers to take next steps. I heard earlier you said those of us that get it digitally are less likely to be responsive to it. But please talk more about how effective you think those are. And you were there, you heard some of the concerns that we had raised in a prior docket.
Yes. So the home energy reports, the thing that is so effective about those, it's our gateway to a large number of customers. And you know, a lot of customers, it's our entry into their home when they don't invite us into their home every month. So we send them reports every month, either paper or by email, and we give them educational tips. And they're typically based on the seasons as well, to adjust their thermostat, have their HVAC checked. And if they've gone online and entered information about their homes, it's even more specific than that. It's more tiered to them. It also compares their usage to a similar home. That's the current report we have now. What is coming soon, which I'm very, very excited about, is we're going to be leveraging the AMI data, and the report is going to be improved. It is going to show customers taking the data that they already have access to in AMI, but it's going to combine that into the HER report and say, here is the data, here's the information about your home, and here's how your home uses energy, not just this is the day and the time and compared to another home, but it's a more similar home using the same heating and cooling type, more similar, and the data is going to be presented in a different way that's more informative. It's
more similar home than what we currently get in the home. Okay.
Yes, it's all based on feedback that we've received, and we have received negative feedback. I won't deny that. But the majority of customers, when we do customer satisfactions, they do enjoy the report. I do know that we do receive negative feedback. The majority of customers do benefit, and we do receive savings around, I think the number's around 79 kilowatt hours per year, annual savings for the customers that participate. And I realize that we've gotten comments today about the over-reliance of that program. But I do want to say there's one thing about that program is we send that as an email. It's not intrusive. Mm-hmm. It's an email. They can choose to participate or choose not. And the tips are there if they want to engage or not. That's different than us coming and knocking on their door and coming in their home. And it's a first step program. And we cross-promote all the other programs, especially the new update to the program, which you're going to see probably in the next quarter or so. The new update is going to cross-promote even more so than the current version. The current version cross-promotes all the other programs as well. But the AMI data is just going to be an extra level to the program that is going to improve it overall. And we're very excited. I've seen what the new report looks like. I wish I could share it with you. It really is an improvement, and I personally have received letters from customers not happy about. I personally addressed to me about the letter about their home energy reports program.
You referenced savings of 79 kilowatt hours. How do you estimate that?
Our third-party evaluator does through the EM&V process. They do a comparison of the customers that participate to a control group that does not receive the reports is through the EM&V process. So there's a matching control group that looks similar to the customers that do participate, and it's a comparison between the two.
So you don't know what they did. You just know that there's that kind of savings.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And AMI-wise, is there something coming that will also be within the Dominion app that will connect with users?
So there's a lot of information that's already available, but customers don't know what to do with it.
Right.
So the home energy report is going to feed them through that. So it'll help to explain some of that data. It will also have the similar home comparison, which if you just go to the AMI data as it is now, it won't have the similar home. So those participants in the home energy checkup report will have a similar home, and then it'll show you how your data disaggregates and where you could save and tips to save and what programs to participate. It'll really define how to use that data and tell you more. And eventually, with our time of use education and rate coaching, you'll have the option to, in our new DR programs, it'll provide you information about what rate, if you potentially wanted to switch to another time of use rate, what it would look like if you switched and what you could do to potentially save on time of use. AMI is really going to improve the programs.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to ask this, and I hope you will know what I'm talking about, but I have I believe in another docket, there was perhaps a stipulation, a conversation about working with some of the high energy users that is yet to come and that I don't think you've mentioned today. Can you read my mind and answer that question?
There are three DSM activities that will go to, that we're going to bring forth in an October meeting to the Energy Efficiency Advisor Group. One is IRA education that we would like to bring additional training to our contractors and ensure that we provide IRA education to contractors and customers about what's coming. So that's one. The second one is there are additional shareholder savings that's going to be added to NEAP. And I think I said, when I testified, I think I said 3.5 million, but it was only 3 million. And then the third was we would investigate a high-use pilot targeting low-income customers and investigate whether that would be a cost-effective option. And if it was not a cost-effective option, we would work with the Energy Efficiency Advisor Group to come up with some alternative program for high-use, low-income customers or even moderate-income customers. So in our it's a November advisory group meeting that we're going to have. We're going to present some ideas to our stakeholder and get some feedback on them if they're in agreement. And then hopefully we'll have another meeting. And then in May, we'll present that. We have to present a report. I don't know if it's ORS or to the commission, but a report on that. I think it's to ORS.
Okay. And in those three items, I didn't hear anything that was kind of a higher energy commercial related conversation that might be happening. That's actually what I remember. That's okay.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the commercial one. It must not have been related to DSM.
Okay. Okay. And I wanted, let me see if this is still valuable. I think we covered that. I'm looking at witness Cutter's recommendations in the SUR rebuttal and wanted to give you a chance to respond. And there are okay. So do you have witness Cutter's SUR rebuttal?
I do not, but I think Joe does. And
Okay.
He'll be nice enough to let me borrow it.
You found the right questions
of
for
course,
me.
either of you could answer this. So this is page 5, and it's figure 1. And this is more of a general question of just understanding your response to what is happening in that chart.
Sure. So I will say the basis for this chart is the 2023 PURPA docket. So I'll qualify that I was not involved in this particular docket, but I have worked to understand kind of the development of this. In the 2023 PURPA docket, the company was analyzing the avoided capacity or kind of the value of capacity for a 10-year resource. So when looking at this chart, and I understand if we're all looking at it the same way, they're analyzing a capacity resource for the years 2024 through 2033. And so there is no value early on. So looking at in black and white, looking at the darkest line here, there's no value until, I believe, 2029, at which time DESC has a capacity need and there is a large value there, and that continues until 2033. My understanding, after talking with DESC and the folks that worked on this docket, is past 2033, again, they were only analyzing a 10-year resource that ended in 2033. The values after that is kind of a residual impacts, but there is not actually a capacity value or a capacity resource there to be valued. So in talking with DESC, the most appropriate extrapolation of that data was to continue the trends seen from 2029 through 2033 out to 2060 in this case. I think within this plan, we may have DSM measures that have values into 2049, 2050s potentially. So that is the explanation of why we kind of extrapolated the data this way. In our conversations with DESC, using the recommended kind of dark line trend that ORS recommends is not appropriate given that they were analyzing a 10-year resource and we need to look at actual demand resources being, positive beyond 2033.
Thank you. And on page 6 of witness Cutter's testimony, lines 7 through 9, maybe we've covered this. I'll move on. And I apologize for taking everybody's time this way. I guess what I'd like to do is look at page 9 and the ORS recommendations that are found there, 1 and 2, and see what the company's response is to those recommendations.
So in response to recommendation 1, I believe that is what we had just talked about with the kind of differences in the graph there. It is my opinion that the recommendation of ORS is not an appropriate use of the PURPA docket data. Just the differences between how the 2023 PURPA docket analyzed a 10-year resources versus extrapolating upon that. So I do not think it would be reasonable to run cost effectiveness of this portfolio using those exact numbers. But I do understand, changes to cost effectiveness. Again, we are running a very long schedule here. We had a potential study that was done, a lot of work done in 2022 and submitted in 2023. The more we change in between what happened at that potential study and what goes into this plan, the more those changes in back-end assumptions could change outcomes. So changing values, going back to the potential study could change the outcome of the potential study and what is considered to be reasonable or achievable savings, both up or down. So I think it's just it's hard to do this last minute and then account for that. Again, changing these numbers, the company may have put in a mix of programs or measures as well.
I'd like to further add if I can, if that's appropriate.
Yes.
So we had a energy efficiency advisory group where we had a specific meeting just on avoided cost, where we had Drew Durkee with ICF and our representative from our integrated resource planning group, Jim Neely, present the avoided cost calculations, both on the energy side and the avoided capacity, and explained it in great detail, explained it to the advisory group and opened it up and explained everything. We took feedback from the stakeholders and made changes to those values. It was documented in our meeting notes, and it was informative, and we did make changes based on that. But to add to Jim's testimony, we may have changed programs, and to retrospectively go back and change goes back to my statement I said earlier. If you change the avoided cost at this point, then it doesn't bring stability to the programs. It causes confusion. If we now say, here's the programs that we said were cost effective, we've already begun, we had a potential study, and we did have a set of programs that we knew were going to feed into this comprehensive plan. We of course adjusted those throughout the advisory group when we were working on the program plans. We worked with the advisory group to improve those programs, but we were also talking to our implementation vendors that help us with those programs. So they knew that we were going to apply for those programs going forward. If they had not passed, and we keep changing the avoided cost numbers, at some point when you're doing a study, and this is an 18-month study, at some point you have to put your pencils down and say, these are the numbers that we're going to use. And if it just creates instability if we now say, now we're going to change the program, and we have to go back to our contractors that help support our programs and tell them now this program may not pass. If that's the case, if we go changing the numbers every year or annually or based on, and historically we have not done that. We've stuck with the model, the numbers that were in the model, and that was the forecast, and we move forward with that forecast.
And is there any opportunity for updates for changes in this realm in the 2026 annual filing?
We could update it, but again,
okay,
if programs do not pass, then we're going to say to our contractors, if say we're ordered to update it every year, some programs may pass and may not pass the next year. It's going to present this instability of the programs. And so at some point you have to decide, do we want to have instability with the programs passing 1 year or not? Because it could lead to a situation where 1 year they pass and 1 year certain programs do not, which for like HVAC, a heating and cooling program where you rely on contractors to inform customers about what's available. If you tell them 1 year the programs are delayed, or I think we'll lose the trust of our contractors that there's a program, and they'll stop submitting rebate applications or stop assisting customers or marketing it if they don't know from year to year whether it's available or not. It'll be confusion with our call center and confusion with customers whether we have rebates 1 year and another year we don't. It's just the design of the programs. It kind of goes back to the 3 to 5 years. It's nice to have some stability for a long amount of time. We tend to make modifications to improve the programs, not to improve the programs, which doesn't seem to cause as many confusions if we take things away from the programs.
Thank you. And shifting gears to Witness Gordon's testimony, I think we covered okay. So Witness Gordon's testimony, it's page 4 and 5, and I just wanted to get your response to items 3. We've covered 4. We covered 1 and 2. So the response would be to their recommendation for number 3 and for number 5. So 3, do you have those items, or should I read them?
I don't know if I have Gordon's.
I do not have Gordon's.
Okay. Number 3, as I read it, is require the company to continue to evaluate new direct load control programs once advanced metering infrastructure is fully deployed in its service territory. That was A. B is keep the EEAG apprised of its progress, and C, propose any additional specific residential and commercial rate-related DR programs once it is practical to do so.
We are in agreement with those recommendations.
Okay.
Both of those.
Okay, and 5 is if the new residential DR program is approved by the Commission, ORS requests that the company provide ORS with examples of customer-facing materials to be used by desk for the new residential DR program when they are available.
We haven't historically provided every Typically, we post our stuff on our webpage, and we haven't historically provided y'all every document that we provide customer facing, but we are glad to do that if you would like that. We are certainly glad to do that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the education, and I'm no more questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Any other commissioner questions? Mr. Richardson, any redirect?
No redirect at this time. So
Thank you very much. Our next witness would be I'm wondering, we obviously are going to have to come back tomorrow morning. And I will give you the option. I don't know how long it's going to take. I assume there would be significant cross-examination of Mr. Gravatt. I don't know. Should we wait till 9:30 in the morning? I don't want to start a witness and then stop in the middle of it if we.
The company does not have any cross-examination for CCL's witness. So if that helps you with your time management.
You want to try and put him up?
If I could ask Chair Powers, what time is the commission planning to adjourn this evening?
Well, we were hoping to adjourn around 5 or a little after, but I mean, if he's going to take a significant amount of time, then I think we got to come back in the morning, no question about it. I don't think anybody planned on working until 7, 8 o'clock tonight, and I wouldn't put us in that position.
I think our preference would be for Mr. Gravatt to be able to come back in the morning to begin testifying so that we don't have to keep him under oath overnight, if that would please the commission.
Well, that's fine. What we'll do is, okay, you have no more witnesses, that's correct?
no more witnesses. This concludes the company's case. So
Okay, that's your case. And we would, I guess, then release your witnesses.
Please, sir.
Okay, let's do that. We're gonna come back at 9:30 and start back, and hopefully we can knock this thing out in the morning. Thank you too. You are released and free to go. And then I guess we'll be in recess till 9:30 in the morning. Thank you all.